I was born in 1979. So Carmen Electra, for me, it was like, there's an exhaustive amount of time that I beat off to Carmen Electra. So I made it a point.
A buddy of mine told me if a chick looks at you for a bit, like 2 seconds, she's into you. That's what I said to her. And she was like, I was just looking at how weird you look. You
show up 5 minutes late, you have a crusty ass Mexican boxing coach or something, you're fucked. You are fucked. You know, some Thai dude is teaching you Muay Thai and you're 3 minutes late. I don't care if there's traffic on it. You're done. You know, wrestling, like high school wrestling, college wrestling.
They do a good job of developing a culture in high school wrestling. Yeah. Definitely. I remember being late to a practice in college, and my coach was like, "You're not going to train today. You're just going to run 5 miles." Yeah. I was like, "Wow, all right,
enjoy that."
Enjoy it. Yeah. Make sure you remember why.
But there's something about that, you know, that carries over to life. That's really, really beautiful. You know.
Do you have children?
I do. I have one 9-year-old girl.
Yeah, that's what's up. I think once I buy the property that I want, I'm gonna just start busting them out.
It's I will tell you this. I know it sounds stupid when everybody's like, it changes your whole life, but it does.
Yeah.
Here's what I will tell someone who is looking to have children. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me, but every category that you would use to measure your quality of life goes down a millionfold.
What do you mean by that?
All your hobbies, all the things you enjoy doing with your free time, your sleep, your sex life, everything the food you eat, everything that you use to measure your quality of life, it will go down. Your vacations now are different. Yeah. You're not there's no more romantic getaways to the beach like you're like going to Disney World. You're going, it's all different and it all goes shit. But somehow it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to you. I don't know how that works, but
it's almost like you. I feel like sometimes people or parents maybe enjoy their life through their kids. You know, maybe that has something to do with it.
And I certainly am guilty of that.
Yeah.
But one thing I've always made a really hard commitment to do is not live vicariously through her. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to play sports. If she doesn't want to play a musical instrument, like. I'm like, okay, you do what you want to do. I'm not going to impose that on you. If you do, like, it'll be great. Yeah. We can play, we can jam out together. But that's what. But I absolutely like allow my enjoyment of life to be dictated by how much my daughter's enjoying it.
Oh, yes,
you know, and I don't think that's healthy.
What's up, gentlemen?
Hello.
How you doing? Mike.
Ethan.
Nice to meet you, Ethan.
Nice to meet you. Apologize for the tardiness.
No, it's okay.
Nice to meet you, dude.
Bobby, what's up, Bobby?
Bobby, he'll be right with us. Hello.
All right, sounds good. This is my co-host, Ethan.
Yes.
Good to have you, bud.
Yes, good to be here. Apologize for the tardiness.
No, it's all good. It was expected.
You have beautiful hair.
Thank
and
you.
it makes up for a lot.
Thank you. Yes, I would hope so. That's why. It slows me down. There's a lot of drag.
So catch some drafts.
Yeah. I got to shave the sides again.
You will not feel that way in 15, 20 years. You'll be like, let me just
grow it out.
Flex those fucking muscles. Because you get to an age where everyone around you is spending their life savings and doing everything they can to, you know, because they'll start receding hairline, whatever.
Oh, yes.
And I have a beautiful full head of hair.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't take it for granted. I'm not one of those guys who's like, yeah, what are you doing?
You didn't have the
turkey thing?
Turkey surgery, nothing?
No. But I know like
genetics.
I know like 5. How
old are you?
My dad, I'm 44. My dad had cancer 2 years ago, right at the beginning of the lockdown. And my dad has never taken care of himself at all for 1 minute of his life.
Yeah.
Super high stress. He's a big fat guy, drinks like crazy. And he went through chemotherapy at 77 years old, lost all his hair.
Oh, wow.
By 78, he full, like fucking boofy. And so I was just sitting there going,
You're
A,
fine. You're indestructible.
I'm so happy my dad's alive. B, fuck yeah. And both my grandfathers died in their 90s with full, beautiful fucking Frank Sinatra hair. So I feel good about that. If all else fails in my life, I can always rest on that and just
Dude,
be like,
90s that's a long life. If you had fun, you could have a lot of fun in 90 years.
NickyRod, I'm surprised the steroids haven't taken your hair.
Yeah,
the steroids?
It's genetic.
You see this?
It is so genetic.
Listen, let me tell you, all things. This is important. I don't know much. about anything. And I think
neither
like
do we.
acknowledging that you're like, my level of expertise is this. My level of even knowledge of is just, but this I know. You can put all the creams on your fucking body and your skin. You can take the best care you can of your teeth. You can lather your head in the right shampoos and then go to Turkey and do and all of those things, and you can drink your bone broth and take the right NAD so that you can live like you're given a hand of cards when you are born, and that's really dictates about 95% of it. There's a window. Exercise, mitigating stress, nutrition plays, but I'm Irish Mexican down the middle, both sides, immigrant family, and horrible, shitty lives of everyone in my family for generations of exhausting labor and insane levels of alcoholism. Never once have they counted a macro or worried about anything going in their mouth. And they all lived right on the butt hair of 100. Wow. And there's nothing. And so my point being, like, you could, and I know people.
It's genetic.
There's just and I'm sure you know the fuckers.
You need to tell that to my cholesterol because I'm trying to fix it with some chicken and whatnot. But
how old are your grandparents? Dude, you had old grandparents.
I do, yeah. So my grandpa, first of all, my grandpa's been addicted to heroin, cocaine, and alcohol since he was like 13.
All very healthy.
Yeah. He's pushing 65 right now.
Trifecta right there.
He just started shitting himself this year, so he's doing well.
Yeah.
That's better than most. 60,
I started last year.
Grandma's doing all right. She's like 65 as well. And I just lost my last great grandparent this year, and she was like 97, something like that. So it's a Spanish blood.
Yeah, and they I'll give you an example. You know who Julianne Hough is?
Oh, I've heard the name.
Okay, she's on Dancing with the Stars. She's crazy hot blonde girl, super nice. Her and her twin brother. She has a twin brother Derek, and they're both dancers, right? Well, I was on Dancing with the Stars. I knew she would come in and like rehearse and shit, and she was super nice, and I was clearly very interested in her because I was single and she looks like it. So I would have these conversations with her, right? And one day I am hanging out and I'm doing the rehearsal thing, and I go home and I drive to the other side to the beach of Los Angeles as opposed to like the center city area. And I stop by Whole Foods to get some groceries. So I'm waiting in line at Whole Foods, and there's a rack of magazines, and one of them is like Self magazine or some women's fitness magazine, and it has her on the cover. And it says, Julianne Hough's Get Ready for Summer Workout and Diet Plan. So I'm like, well, that's fucking interesting. And I'm thumbing through it, and it's like egg whites and bullshit. And and I go back the next day, and this is, I know it sounds just like kind of over the top. And if you put this in a script, I come in, and her brother are splitting bowls of candy. Yeah. And I go, what? Hey, so I go, what's with her? Your Get Ready for Summer. She's like, I didn't even do an interview. Wow. They just took pictures of me and put I've never worked out.
They just sell whatever will sell. Like if you're in good shape, people want to emulate that, and then they're like, hey, company will say like, I'll pay you X amount to just take pictures and lie about what you do.
Do you think it's harder for women to get in shape because there's like different body chemistry, they're predisposed to be whatever?
I think it's genetics.
Right?
I think some girls come up. Carmen Electra, she came into the radio show to promote Starsky and Hutch. So we're talking, this is a while ago, 2005-ish. And I was born in 1979. So Carmen Electra for me, it was like there's an exhaustive amount of time that I beat off to Carmen Electra. So I made it a point to like go in the other room and just be around her. Yeah, just a bit. Honestly, like I wasn't envisioning like I'm gonna spit game, but I was like I have to at least.
Did you get close, like sniff her hair?
Oh yeah, no, fully. I like, and she's super sweet. And I was
hang
like,
out in the closet a little bit.
yeah, I got as close as I legally could.
Yeah.
No, but she was cool. She was sweet. But in between commercial breaks, I'm walking in there, I'm talking to her, and I watch, and she eats a bagel and cream cheese, and she's washing it down with a regular Coke, non-Diet Coke. Yeah. And I come back in the next commercial break, and I'll be like, "Oh, the next one's free," and she has a different bagel and cream cheese. And
I love bagels.
And a new Coke, because I could tell because there's one next to it with lipstick on it, and she's cracked. And I go, "Is that how you eat?
Is that your diet?"
And she goes, "All day, every day.
Wow.
My whole life."
Wow.
And she looks great.
And so you go like, well, a lot of it is just that Carmen Electra's parents gave birth to Carmen. You know, Francis Ngannou never lifted weights ever. Yeah. You know, like I'm sure working in a sand mine had a lot to do. Yeah. But at the same time, also, I know dudes all day, every day in the gym with tons of pharmaceuticals, and they don't look 1/5 as good as that. You know?
And I see some homeless people. I'm like, this guy,
they're yoked
right now.
Yes, sir.
Shredded.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I feel like, we're kind of dealt, like you said, dealt cards, and I feel like you could definitely shave off years if you really try. But
committed.
adding years, I think you maybe just, like you said, max 10, like plus or minus 10.
You guys both,
years.
when you started jiu-jitsu, rate of progression and were quickly good, right?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much.
You came in with wrestling also, right?
Yeah, as soon as I started, I was pretty much one of the best. It's really weird.
I was terrible.
Really weird.
I was terrible.
Really?
Oh yeah, I was so clumsy and like awkward. Yeah, I was like, I really liked it, but I was really bad at first, and then I like trained probably 3 times a day for like a full year, and then I was like, oh, I really like this, and then yeah. But I was terrible at first,
You quickly started training all day, every day.
Yeah, I don't know why I really liked it right away, but I wasn't good right away. I think
that's a good sign though, as far as like your personal kind of makeup. And what I mean by that is most people, adults, do something that they're not good at, and they go, well, fuck this.
Yeah.
And to kind of find something that you can tether yourself to, even though it was probably wildly uncomfortable, and that's a very good sign, because there's a handful of things in my life that I've done that, but there's a whole other
for sure
5 handfuls of things where I was like, well, this
I hate this.
Sucks.
I'm not gonna. Yeah. There's for sure that. I think I wanted to do MMA at first, and I hadn't done any jiu-jitsu, and they told me like at TriStar, they told me like, you have to learn this or else you're gonna get submitted. So I was like so bad at first, and then I just forced myself for a bit, and I was like, oh, I actually like this one a lot more, and then and here I am. Yeah,
you're just the wrong age, because
maybe
if you started in 1992, you didn't have to learn jiu. You could just
exactly. You could just run through some shit.
Good wrestlers learn like
the other guy didn't know jiu-jitsu. Yeah,
just smash people. You know?
Yeah. Have you ever fought MMA? Did you?
I have fought in like Muay Thai and striking sports, and I have had jiu-jitsu competitions.
So you're a mixed martial artist, right? Yeah.
But I'm not a fighter. And what I mean by that is like my persona. I'm not that guy. You know,
you're not that
you don't
guy.
Look for problems.
I absolutely don't look for problems. But I think that there's world class. You know, there's world class MMA fighters and boxers and jiu-jitsu athletes that are not that guy who's going to go like George St. Pierre. Will avoid fucking you up at all costs.
Yeah.
I have also met plenty of people like the Diaz brothers will be happy to fight you right now.
They're very confrontational.
They'll be in walkers at 80 years old, and they'll be like, "You want to go outside? Fuck, I'll fuck you up." You know,
that's their version of fun.
Yeah. I think there's it's a personal makeup has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm just not like. I've become close with Tim Kennedy because he owns the academy that I train at now in kind of the north side of Austin.
No
here.
way. Okay.
What's that gym?
Gracie Humaita, and he owns the Cedar Park Academy that I train at, and then there's the Austin Academy as well. And
he runs a pretty cool podcast as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and like you talk about manly dudes, like warrior spirit,
the manly of the manliest.
Like,
that's it.
A championship competitor, like prime competitor at middleweight, and then also
I was just watching. Sorry to
a lot of
interject.
war. You know,
Yoel Romero. Remember his fight?
Dude.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Just rewatched it the other day.
Man.
It's funny. I don't know if it came up on Fight Pass or something.
It must have came up. We saw the same one where it's like they're talking about Yoel sitting on the corner, and their corner. Remember? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where he got that extra.
From my point of view, it looked like Mr. Kennedy was like holding his glove, getting some swings in, and then time runs out, and then Yoel was like, there was an ice issue, right?
There was some issue in his corner.
There was a Vaseline
but it was
issue.
Like 3 minutes of a break.
Yeah, it was a long, and they're like, we don't speak English.
Tim was putting in work. Tim was putting in work,
and
like that fight would have been over.
He would have won.
But
if it was it should have been a 1 minute timeout break in between rounds, I think Tim would have won.
But I heard, I don't know if it was. I don't want to put words in anybody else's mouth because this can be looked at as a bit derogatory.
No one watches this
I think it was Chael Sonnen who said like that's just Cubans. Cuban competitors and not
found a way to win.
Not that they're dirty. It's just like trust me. It's just like Soviet competitors. Like they'll figure out a way. You know.
Yeah. Tim was definitely I think from my perspective, like watching it, I think Tim would have won if it was the 1 minute break that should have been, and he was pretty pissed after. I think he was like, "What the fuck, bro?"
And but my point being, it's like I have conversations with him, and I've been really fortunate to kind of be able to become personal with the guy. And he as well has farmland, and I'm new to like the farming thing.
Tim has farmland.
Tim does, yes.
Awesome.
And he will catch like an accidental kitty cat in his traps for raccoons or something, and I will do the and I will figure out any way to take it to the veterinarian. And Tim's like, well, you put it down.
Wow.
He'll have sick chickens, and I'm like, what do we do? Let's take it. My wife, I'm like, we have to take it to the poor thing to the vet. Tim's like, no, you called. Like, let's go. And and I'm
That's
not
how
even
it
going to
was.
get into the level of like what it takes to be a professional soldier. But my point being is like, there's guys who have a killer instinct, and I'm not like if shit hits the fan and there's a world-ending nuclear war, I want that warhead to land on my house. I don't want to go.
Oh, you
where
want
I'm, like, begging my daughter to kill me so she can eat my guts to sustain herself, and like getting hoarding bullets so that I can fight for water. I'm good. I'd rather just like call it a day.
Meanwhile, Tim Kennedy's going to be like, this is my time to shine. Yeah,
He's
he's
got
like,
a bunker,
finally. Yeah.
blood on his face, leading the charge of everybody following behind him.
Yeah, that's probably the first person I call if there's a
Yeah.
situation like that.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
crazy, right? Like in Afghanistan, so much of their population was so young when all this conflict began. So many people have never known peace.
Yeah.
So many young kids.
They're just born into war.
Lifetime of war. They don't understand anything different to, bomb IEDs going off and all this warfare.
Yeah, we got it good in the U.S., man.
Oh, yeah.
Try to keep it
Yeah.
this way.
You know how in Israel they have and I believe South Korea. There's a handful of countries
Mandatory
where
war
mandatory.
time,
You turn 18 and you
Or
serve
army time.
You don't have to necessarily go into battle, but you got to serve your country in some way.
Yeah.
I think we should have that in the U.S., but it should be you turn 18, you have to go somewhere way shitty. Because
You'd learn a lot.
I am absolutely in full support. If you want to complain about America, that's fine. I'm a pretty nationalistic guy, but I also am open-minded and I'm a realist, and I understand this country it has aggressive flaws. And if you're a young kid and you're like, fuck the people, fight the power, whatever, I get it. But don't base it off of a complete lack of how fucking insanely lucky you are to be in this country. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So go to Honduras for a couple years, go to El Salvador, go to parts of Africa, parts of the Middle East, and just hang out, and then come back, and then let's see what you have to complain about.
Bro, even us going to Puerto Rico for a little bit, I was like, there's nothing in the grocery store. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not a third world country, but like we got it real good here. The groceries is stocked. We got guns here in Texas.
There's justice. Like if you get hurt or you get something, like people care about you being in the right. Like there, you get, I don't know, someone murders someone. It's just kind of flies under the radar. Like here, it's like, who did this and why, and let's catch them.
And you don't have to go do this like 18,000 miles away to talk about like Burma or something. Like I spent enough time in Mexico growing up in Southern California.
Mexico's dangerous.
And someone robs you, and like even if you're not being you're not a drunk, you like someone pickpockets you.
Yeah.
You call the cops. Now you're tossing the dice again.
Yeah.
You understand, and I understand people love to have complaints about the police, and that you, like I said, this is America. You're free to express.
You're
that.
allowed
That's
to complain
awesome.
here. That's a big one too.
But just take into consideration how lucky you are that there is uniformly a group of people that will answer the call and show up and help
and then
you.
Then you won't have to bribe them to get the help. And
and I'm sure things are different in like extreme, like in high crime neighborhoods. I mean, I don't know what it's like.
For sure, yeah.
I did live in pre-Cory Booker Newark, so I was fucking gnarly.
Yeah,
it was way gnarly.
Newark's
a sketchy place,
and it's way better now.
Yeah.
But this is 99, and I grew up in LA and I moved to New Jersey. I had no concept of what is a good neighborhood or bad neighborhood. I just saw in the paper, there's a $180 apartment. That looks appealing. And
why is it $180?
And I was the only non-black dude. And it was crazy because I would get stopped so much by the cops.
Oh, they think you're buying drugs.
And they go, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And I live over there. And they go, no, you don't. Wow. And here's whenever any of my super right-wing friends like to get really uppity about, say, harassment for people of color from the police and everything. I go, like, let me give you a little background on this. When I was living in Newark, I would get stopped a couple times a week. If a cop saw me walking to or from my house, they were going to
thinking
stop
like, this guy doesn't belong here.
And every single time I would explain to them, and I would show them my ID, and they'd be like, "What are you doing here from California?" I would say, "Oh, I'm going to Rutgers," and they go, "Okay, move and stay safe."
Yeah. Get out of here when you can.
How many times I got arrested? 0.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you weren't harassed.
Do you
were
know
just
how
like,
many times I had drugs in my pocket? 100% of the time.
Beautiful.
I was either going to say 0 or 100.
No, I'm a profound drug addict. And,
Okay.
Can you realistically think that I would have fared the same way? If
No.
I was a
You'd be patted
black
down
fella?
for sure.
I was
yeah.
in awe when I sat down because Nicky's on 3s, and you've got a 20 milligram.
Yeah, no, these
20.
are
Wow. No one's on those yet.
these are the hey, let me try one of those, and you have to go take a bathroom break.
That, yeah.
Yeah, you want some?
Can I sniff it?
Yeah, no, it's a good flavor.
You're going to make the podcast a lot better.
I mean, for someone your size, NickyRod, you need.
Oh, it smells
milligrams.
interesting.
How much you weigh?
I'm about 235.
Oh yeah, so you're a sizable fella.
And it's tobacco? Nicotine.
And it's nicotine. Yeah.
That's better than like dipping.
I love chewing tobacco and dipping, but when you're dipping, you are introducing tobacco, and B, the way that it gets in your system is it literally cuts up the inside of your lip,
Little like micro.
and so that you can get it in your bloodstream, and that seems to be where a sizable amount of it's the same thing with smoking. You have to inhale said
Yeah.
tobacco, and so this at least is just you're swallowing it.
Yeah.
Cleaner alternative.
What was your drug of choice?
I like stimulants.
Stimulants,
And when I moved to the East Coast, I got introduced to doing heroin, but I would only do it. I would smoke speedballs. I would smoke. I would only smoke heroin, and I'd take it with cocaine. I never fancied like
Suddenly
being
I'm more interested in
down.
you.
I never fancied like the idea of it. I used heroin. I took pills. I never got it. Whereas stimulants, it was like that was that manna from heaven. Meth and cocaine, especially smoking cocaine. I loved it. Loved it.
There's a difference between meth and isn't meth
Wait,
like
how do you
cocaine?
do this? How do you smoke?
I'm sorry.
What's
Wait. How do you smoke cocaine? Yeah.
How do
You
you
just
smoke
burn it.
it?
You turn to crack.
Make
crack.
But do you put it with tobacco or weed, or do you?
Sometimes I used to smoke.
Or you just
Yeah,
put it in a pipe
they,
and fucking-
and every like culture has their own like slang for like you put it in a cigarette or whatever. And I used to do that, but I'd make crack. I'd make crack and I would smoke crack and I would smoke crack all day long and all night long.
How do you think that affected your brain? Like
fuck yeah.
do you think you've recovered fully from a situation like that?
Well, it's been 21 years.
Yeah.
So
Look, with your genetics, it didn't do anything. You're fine, man. We spoke about this.
That's quite impressive, man. Because usually people,
You
they're,
did a lot
they're
of it.
stuck
You
on
did a
it.
lot of the hard drugs.
oh yeah, I was in rehab 3 times before I turned 21.
wow.
So I was bad. I mean, I say this, and I always like to point out, I'm not trying to be some exhibitionist, but I do want to say this only to give people who have never either experienced addiction or have a close loved one that has. In that, I love my wife and my daughter so much that I almost can't put it into words. But I can't honestly tell you I love them more than I love smoking crack and drinking.
It's like that, huh?
I can't tell you that. I can't. Maybe, but
it's that much of a
maybe.
like serotonin like explosion or whatever.
I loved the process of going to get it. I would get goosebumps. I loved having it, and I'd smoke it, and I was and
It's like going to like
ADCC.
it's like sneaking out to get some ass for your first time.
yeah, no, and
That's powerful.
it absolutely is like if you were 14 in 8th grade for freshman year, and a smoking hot chick gave you booty, that's how you would feel about it.
Yeah.
It's just like like an insanely powerful grip on your brain. You're just like controlled by it.
All I thought about, all I cared about, and to the point that my life now is obviously a million times better. But my life was so much
Simpler.
Fun?
it was so much simpler then.
Simpler.
You just had one goal.
That's it.
Just get that
Find
one
drugs,
thing.
do
And then
drugs.
you're
Wow.
good.
I didn't care about anything else.
How often did you have to do something like that? Like, is it like you take a hit, you're good all day? You need it like 5 times a day?
Well, at first, it was awesome because you could get an 8-ball and like you had your whole weekend set. And, like you have a couple drinks, you go to the bar, you do
build
a
up
key
a little
bump,
tolerance.
talk to some chicks, and you go back and
Yeah.
like 3 hours later, do a key bump, and it quickly progresses to like, you have to do it all day. You know, you just start doing it all day, and most people don't. Like that's another thing I think is so misguided by like our defense against addiction in this country is that there's so much bullshit out there. Like if you try heroin once or you snort, like you're done. It's like no, I know plenty of dudes who
scare
like
tactics.
got hammered and they
guys off
to
it,
fucking slam some heroin and they're like, that's wow, that's not good for me, and never did. I know plenty of guys who are grown ass men with businesses and families, and they're like a couple times a month they're like, let's go get some blow, you know,
Functioning.
It happens, you know. Like I just think that you don't have to do it. Now, if you hit that 7 or 11 and you happen to have a genetic predisposition to addiction and you start introducing those drugs, you're fucked. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Can I just go back?
You got it.
So I don't know if you guys went over it. Could we just like properly introduce what where you came
Sure.
from, what you do? I don't know if you guys were a little late, so I don't know if you spoke about it already, but like,
No, we just kind of got into talking.
yeah, that's usually so. Like, yeah, so
Nikki and I met on Grindr. We were both new to
he
Texas.
spends a lot of time on there. Yeah. So yeah, so where are you from? What do you do? And how'd
Born
you
and raised in
end
LA.
up here? Yeah.
My name's Mike, and I'm a radio guy pretty much by trade, but I've been lucky enough to do lots of TV and other stuff and hosting.
Okay.
And I am now a podcast host, which is crazy. You know,
Your
because
own podcast.
Everyone is.
Yeah, like I didn't expect
my
anyone
attorney,
ever,
and I was like, "You should listen to my podcast." I'm like, "What the fuck?"
I tell people not to listen to us. I'm like,
That's
I don't
sometimes,
want to
yeah,
embarrass
yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
and that's
so-
what I do. And and I have been practicing jiu-jitsu a long time, and I love it. I'm still shitty,
Nice.
but and that's
Born-
kind of how we got to know.
Born
each
and
other.
raised in Texas.
Born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I'm
Okay,
one of
right.
those very rare people who's actually from there.
Wow.
From
He's
there,
got over 10 years of speaking, right?
really.
Over a
Oh, yeah.
decade. Over a decade.
I started in radio on the air. I started in radio in like 2002.
Wow,
On the
okay.
like being someone who gets paid to talk and
20
create
years.
content. I was probably like middle of 2003.
How are we as speakers?
Good.
Are we all right? Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
but like you look at it as like how you would look at like a really good white belt in the same way, and I don't mean that as an insult. What
No,
I
we're
mean by
learning.
that
No,
is
I'm
like
kidding. Yeah,
there's
we're learning,
still
yeah.
there's small things that only come. And we were talking about it before the podcast.
Experience.
There's certain things that can only be done through just doing it so many goddamn times that it becomes normalized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your heart rate has to be the exact same, if not lower, than it was 10 seconds before you started, 10 seconds after. And also
Interesting.
that the most important thing, and this again, you can't synthesize this, is that there's going to be a person that you present on the air, and there's a person who you really are. And then you just practice to get that
Meshing them.
that window to close.
Are you scared that like you could like kind of lose yourself trying to mesh those things together? Like
No. I do worry about that for my wife and her cohort. She's an actor. And I genuinely, I don't know. This is because I'm a dummy who barely graduated high school. But I do.
Us too.
I think about things, and I think about like, if you're, as I've gotten older, I'm considerably older than everybody in this room. And the one thing that I've some of the things that I've developed understanding of is like, part of the difficulty, what makes life seem so hard, is just development and understanding of your own identity, right? In modern society, it didn't matter in 700 AD.
You were just like
You're
food-
I have
food
to
and
live,
shelter,
and I have
yeah.
to take care of my family.
Yeah.
Okay, your identity has become an issue, whether you like it or not. And I think if you're a grown adult who day by day works really hard to pretend to be someone else, how does that? How does that? And maybe it doesn't. Maybe like you know, Michael Fassbender would listen to this and go like, "Shut the fuck up! I know I'm working." You know.
It's interesting you say that because comedy is the same thing. When you do stand up for the first time,
Aspiring comedian.
it's often like people are you're terrible, but you're very much yourself. And then it's not till many years later, most of the top guys, like if you go watch a show at the Mothership, people who they are really comes across in their act.
It's amazing for me too. You're totally right. And I'm not a stand-up. I've done it, and people have always been like, "Hey, will you you're funny on the air and you do it all the time. Why don't you just do stand-up? And I go like, wait a second. It's a different ballgame. Just like some of the greatest comics, some of the greatest stand-ups are horrible on the air. You get them on to promote their, back in the day before there was the Joe Rogan Experience and people have their own websites and Twitter accounts.
You get them on radio.
They'd have to come on the radio show a lot. So I'd see the best of the best come in. Joe Rogan himself, before JRE, Joe used to come on the show quite a bit.
Wow,
and
really?
And that's why I've always been such a demanding, like a really almost an insufferable apologist for him, because I go, okay, you may be jealous, you may have your problems, but don't feed me this line of shit like he's just monetizing them, because the Joe Rogan you hear right now is the same. He would come into the radio show and talk about hallucinogens and arm bars and monkeys that live on some crazy island. He's like, have you seen this video? These monkeys can jump 20 yards.
He's still just the same.
He's the same guy.
And he's been like preaching that kind of stuff that now it's like almost mainstream. But back then it was like, you talk about hallucinogens, you're like, you're going to lose your job. Or you're going to so...
Yeah, no,
cool.
and
what
so
was your first experience? Sorry to interrupt. What was your first experience with Joe? So he came on your radio show a long time ago.
Yeah, I was a member of this morning show in Los Angeles, which was like at the time, like it's called the Kevin and Bean Show. I was neither Kevin nor Bean, but I was a member of the show, and I was in studio, and I at the time was just starting to scratch the surface of jiu-jitsu, and I was training. Cool. I was telling Nicky I grew up with Orlando Sanchez. We were boys.
No
I knew him
way.
before he ever put on a gi.
Damn.
I knew Orlando.
That's incredible.
Before he trained or before he?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Wow.
No, he went to La Cañada High School, and I went to San Marino High School. So we were in not only like locals, like we were same. Like we play each other in football. I was a year or two older than him, but I knew Orlando. And then when we both graduated and I moved back to LA, we lifted weights together and stuff. Like we were boys. And he
That's awesome.
had not gotten clean yet. And Orlando was the guy you knew on the mats. Like that was Orlando with a handful of blow. And and like
I've only had a handful of interactions with the guy, but he's super nice and cool with me every time, and he seemed like an intense. He's
a super intense dude. He only had one gear, and that's why unfortunately he's passed on now because he knew one gear. But the thing about him too, though, was like we were talking about music that we like before the podcast started, and I said over anything with entertainment, I like authenticity a lot, and that's why I don't have any problem with like. Let me look at this.
You and Joe, or you and Orlando?
What's that?
You and Joe, or you and Orlando?
Both guys.
Okay.
Both guys. That's a perfect. I mean, Orlando never made any claims to be like this civilized fucking. Like he's like I like Harleys. I like fucking badass biker gangs. That I'm like, dude, are you seriously bringing that guy to fucking this movie with us?
He's like,
and he's like, I got knuckles on my, and I want to go and I want to train hard and like I want to ride it till the rails fall off. He never fucking made any claims to be others.
Yeah.
But like if you look at like Ellen's done, right? Ellen's done.
Ellen DeGeneres?
Yeah. Her whole career's over
because
people said she's not a nice person.
Oh,
right. She didn't sexually harass someone. She didn't commit any people. But why? Because she gave off the image for years, and she was really good about it.
A nice person.
That I was everybody's best friend. And you watch my show, I'm dancing with you in your living room. Like David Letterman fucked his intern and got caught as a married man, like 30, 40 years the elder of this young girl. And he came on the show that night, and he was like, so this is unfortunate. I hope we can move on. I'm sorry. And Pamela Anderson on the show tonight. And no one ever said a goddamn word.
Fine.
You know why?
Unapologetic.
He never made any claims to be anybody's better. He's like, this show sucks. I don't like you. Don't bother me in my office. And so there's a level of authenticity that goes a long way. You know?
A great example of that is when Benjamin Netanyahu, he became the president of Israel, but when he was the mayor of Tel Aviv, someone was trying to blackmail him, saying that I know about the affair you've got, and you've got a wife and whatnot, and pull out of the election or we're going to expose you. And he did a press conference with his wife on one side. I hope this is true. Someone told me this. And the mistress on the other side, and be like, hey, this is a situation. I'm being threatened. I'm not going to back out of this. Yes,
this is what happened.
I've made a mistake, but we're going to move forward. And he became the president.
And it never,
he's like one of the best.
No matter how many examples of that real mea culpa, no matter how many times it happens and it works perfectly, goddamn PR agents and political campaigns, they always insist on creating this insane convoluted narrative that everyone's like, well, shut the what? Yeah. That's an insane thing to say.
Probably because then you have to rely on them more to maintain it. So it's like you need them around if you're trying so hard to maintain this persona. You need those people around so they're out of a job if you just don't give a shit suddenly. Right?
I think there's that. And then I also think that we all have a much better, even subconscious level to sniff bullshit.
Yeah.
Especially with public figures.
Yeah.
Here's another thing. If I were to say, name steroid era baseball players who got busted.
Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds.
Okay. Mark McGwire probably comes to mind.
Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth, yeah.
I actually don't know that many.
Okay, so
baseball
even if you're not into baseball, but people will throw out Barry Bonds. They will throw out Mark McGwire.
I think I only know about Barry Bonds because of that.
Rafael Palmeiro. There's a list. There's a handful of a dozen guys that even if you're a diehard baseball fan, that they will throw out. And Bonds obviously the biggest, but Roger Clemens was in the news for tons. No one will ever say the name Jason Giambi. It'll never happen. Why? Because all those other dudes, even in front of Congress, were like, I plead the fifth, and my wife was getting it for her fucking postpartum, and
syringe.
Jason Giambi goes, I get paid a lot of money to hit home runs, and I'm getting older, and I'm really scared, and I was trying to do anything to make sure that I earn my money, and I'm really sorry, and I know I let down a lot of fans, but I hope you can forgive me. And that's the God's honest truth. And no one ever said a goddamn thing about it forever.
What are they going to pick at?
Yes.
What's left?
It's very reasonable.
Yeah.
There's something to that. It's like, and we since day one of kindergarten, everyone talks about George Washington chopping down a cherry tree and just fessing up to his parents. But then no one fucking does it. No one, even as grown-ups, And it's like you realize there's massive power in doing that.
Yeah.
Because all of us are fucking imperfect.
Yes. Yeah.
It's more relatable.
Yeah.
You're suddenly human. Man, I didn't know you basically went around with Orlando Sanchez for that before
insane.
he even that's
and my first year and a half, my first year and a half of experience with jiu-jitsu was almost exclusively rolling with him. And when I wasn't rolling with him, I was rolling with Romulo Barral.
Damn.
And so
okay.
I didn't know there was such a thing as retaining guard or passing guard. I didn't get it. I didn't honestly. My idea
for your life.
My idea of jiu-jitsu was becoming a more resilient training doll.
Damn. You get the defense heavy when you're in that room. Yeah. Did you happen to see Nicky Rod's match with Sanchez?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Is that the first time you saw Nicky Rod?
That was the first time we became familiar with him. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true.
Yeah, that was a pretty decent spectacle. I think
that was a big breakout. I think.
After the match, Orlando was like, only Americans can beat me. He's like, get him.
Sick.
He has that thing. He has a real thing about there's an old school kind of frontier honor about that, where it's like
he and Tim Kennedy, were they friends?
I don't think so. I don't think so. He really, because Tim is Tim now, and so Tim tries to surround himself with upstanding. Orlando. Yeah, Orlando would hang
but
with.
They're similar in some ways in that hardcore mentality.
Yeah, but one's
maybe one's a little
different. One's clean. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also just honestly, just lifestyle. Orlando seriously hung with hard ass gangsters. Some of the dudes he would be around, I'd be like, he would say this guy's cool, and I'd be like, oh yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. And also guys like Fabrizio Verdum and Vanderlei. That was his group. Those dudes, they don't give a fuck. They're hardcore. They're not like the GSP kind of
straight shooters.
There's a separation. Same with now through knowing Tim and then training at this academy where they have veterans jiu-jitsu, and largely because of Tim, I think, a huge contingency of guys out there that are veterans or active duty military, right? Mm-hmm. And so you meet some of these dudes who are Delta Force, Green Beret, Navy SEAL, the special ops, hard men.
Top,
and it's a real coin toss because sometimes they look like him, and you're like, well, I get it. Yeah. Sometimes you're like, you're a fucking Navy SEAL? really? Like,
They look
wow.
like this guy.
Yeah, but you'd be like, do my taxes, please. Like, 'cause,
Yeah.
And you're like,
Okay.
and then you find out, like, this guy did some serious dirt in Afghanistan or Iraq.
The most unassuming guys sometimes. They're just
so there's no, and I think that it goes with having the luxury of interviewing lots of like high level fighters. You will meet the Gennady Golovkins where you're like, wow, like you're a really tough guy, and you do not look. And you meet him, you're like, and he's like, hi, nice to meet you. You're like, and then there's dudes who walk in the room, and you're like, oh, like Darth Vader walked in. You're like, holy fuck, like
Evil
Jesus
motherfucker,
Christ, this is. There's chicks too. I remember meeting Valentina Shevchenko, and she was incredibly nice, but there was a darkness. Like I was like, I do not.
It's a warrior.
She will hurt. This woman, I think, would enjoy fucking me up.
You think you could beat her up?
No.
No?
No fucking way.
Even though you're a man?
Yeah, no way.
No way.
No.
You guys are saying, was she smaller than you?
She's probably smaller than me by 20 pounds, I would say. I'm like 180.
Yeah.
I would have to think that walking around, she's probably like 160, 155. But if you have experienced someone who's really good at striking and understands distance and the angles she would cut and the level of panic that she would have when I maybe caught her would be so small that so quickly I'd be gassed out and she would fuck me up. She would just.
Do you think you could beat her up?
You could beat her up for sure.
Ethan?
I don't know.
You don't know?
She's bigger than you.
In pure striking, like no grappling.
No, just MMA fight.
An MMA fight.
But you think you could get close enough to put her down?
Surely you could shoot on her.
Surely I could do. I don't know. I feel
Surely.
like surely, yeah. Come on, Liam was the last person to.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Didn't
That's the
work out
biggest
too well.
misunderstanding that like pure grapplers have about like really good strike. Like
I'm probably wrong. I'd probably get fucked up just for the listeners.
the
out
guys
there,
who
I
are
don't want-
successful. There's some people who have made a transition into MMA that are world class, Lumpini Stadium Thai fighters or like Dutch kickboxers that don't seem to have what it did. But there's the guys like the Israel Adesanyas that there's a thing where you have this envision. It's like, well, if I just take them down,
Yeah.
but you notice
It's not so
Yoel
simple.
Romero didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, and because you get in the ring and you say just like you would in a grappling match, you can sense certain things. He got on there. He's like, I'm not. Some people understand distance, and it's so crazy, and it's like they're in the Matrix.
Wow.
This is why I always, at least at first, disliked jiu-jitsu so much more than in striking sports, because when someone's fucking me up in boxing or leg kicking the shit out of me and laughing as they're doing it with their hands at their waist in Muay Thai, your brain makes sense of it. Okay? So if he blasted a double on me and just passed my gut and smashed me, okay, that your brain makes. But most of the time, I'm spending this time where I don't even see someone fucking me up.
Wow.
And next thing I know, I'm like, oh, I mean, I feel like everything's fine.
You mean in
right?
striking, like you don't like catch on to what's happening, why you're getting hit?
No,
and
you
not hitting
do.
Them?
You do.
Oh,
You're
and in
like,
jiu-jitsu,
this
you
person's
don't? You're saying
so
you're-
much more skilled than me and much more athletic and so quick and so experienced, and they're literally, you could see like someone's throwing their limbs at you and then it hits you and you're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And you're throwing and it's not hitting them.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they're effortlessly kind of circling and
Dancing
you're like,
around you,
fuck.
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and so your brain, your animal brain makes sense of it. There are times when I am getting my ass handed to me on the mats, and I don't.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Like someone is just
Someone like half your size is just
detail,
like,
small.
Yeah.
Someone 150 pounds, teeny little details that they're just manipulating
Yeah.
the whole way, and I'm like, wow, how?
Yeah, I find like a little tiny positional change, which again, like someone who, if you're just starting, like you don't see it and you barely even feel it, but suddenly it feels like why are they like 300 pounds right now when I'm trying to move them versus like a guy who doesn't know what's going on and you just kind of push him over and they go flying. And
They said, Dustin got interviewed about Khabib, and they were like, it's just his strength, right? And he's like, no.
It's not his technique.
It's like I'm strong. Most of the people I train with and fight are super strong.
Yeah,
it
I
was
remember
that
this interview,
he had. There was this tiny details where he would move his body and manipulate, where I just felt
positioning,
completely
yeah.
sunk.
Yeah.
You know.
Anytime I try to like pin someone against like the wall or cage, I feel
simplified. Yeah. I don't know what to do once there's
I
a
just
corner.
can't.
You probably feel that way most of your day.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Sometimes the other day I was trying to shrimp and there was like something there, like a pole or something, and I was trying to connect like knee and elbow connection, and I went bang, and I kneed myself in the bridge of the nose.
We were talking about
done that
stimulants a little bit.
Yeah.
What was your turning point in life?
It was so weird, and it sounds so corny because everyone talks about like these coming to God moments or like an intervention from some type of. But I had crashed tons of cars and gone to jail and gotten my ass kicked and woken up in jail and woken up in places where I didn't remember getting there. And my parents were pulling their hair out and crying in front of my face because they were so disappointed. And friends had ostracized me and everything is going wrong. And none of that made me want to, inspired me in any way. And I happened to be in this shitty motel in Inglewood, California, smoking rocks, and for zero reason, I can give you zero explanation, but there was a mirror at the end of the bed, and you got to remember, I'm a barely 21-year-old guy, and I'm sitting there watching like shitty daytime TV, smoking rocks, and there was a mirror at the end of the bed, and I looked at it, just glanced. And now, from that point, I can't remember this story through my own first-person perspective. I can only see it like closed-circuit TV, like a closed-circuit camera.
Yeah.
And I got up, and I went to the side of the bed of this motel, and this is, pre-cell phone. I opened up the drawer, and there was a Yellow Pages, and I started going through them, and I started calling facilities. And I found one that had a bed, and I called my parents, and I said, I'm here, and I found this place, and I want to go. Do you think that? And that was that. And that was that. And
you just like saw yourself in the mirror like, I need to change this
I think
or something.
there was a real sobering, pardon the pun, feeling of I'm young enough
where I can fix this, maybe. Is that
I can make a decision. That I know that there was this realization that I have all that I need to have an amazing life. And if I continue this way, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Under zero
You're
circumstances.
like throwing it away day by day. Yeah.
I watch all the behind the music. I read all the autobiographies of every rock star, every kick-ass entertainer. Never once did they go, and then I started doing drugs, and that's when things really started kicking in for me. Yeah. It's always and then they got noticed, and then the band became huge, and then they're playing arenas, and drugs came in the picture, and it's like...
It's always downhill in the drugs.
It's always.
Yeah.
And
you hear that, Bobby? Fucking
Hey. We're on the air.
Just want to take a quick moment to thank our sponsors, MASF Supplements and Violent Hippie. Use code SimpleMan, all caps, for 15% off both of those companies. MASF Supplements, trademarked Smashing Greens, Smashing Reds, very nutrient-dense foods. I personally use their creatine and BCAAs during my workout and sometimes even before the workout. For Violent Hippie, they have soaps, USDA CBD oils, T-shirts, rash guards, you name it, owned by former Navy SEAL Mitch Aguiar. Use Simple Man to get 15% off.
Guys, Violent Hippie, MASF Supplements, get the Smashing Greens, Smashing Reds, all the vitamins, nutrients you need to get that body that you want.
NickyRod style.
Thanks.
I was on Lex Fridman's podcast, and anytime I would like talk to him,
That
he
was
would
so funny,
He would
man.
look at me and was like, "What?" Like I was a meathead, right? Yeah.
Literally, he would say words right now.
Yeah. He would look
Him
at
and
you.
Craig would go back and forth.
Yeah.
Giggles.
And then you would say something, and he would just like slowly turn his head and just like, "Is that right, you gorilla? You can speak English, huh?"
It was pretty funny.
Oh man, it was great.
It could completely different person than I am.
Yeah, you guys are polar opposites, but it was a really good dynamic, and Nicky and Craig there were good mitigators between you guys. It was perfect.
Interviewing people in particular, as far as like facets of broadcasting.
Yeah, this is your expertise.
It's exactly like grappling in the sense that if Lex Fridman tried to be like Joe Rogan, it'd be a disaster.
And vice
But
versa.
Lex is so Lex,
Yeah.
and he'd sit in his like very measured,
in his
very
suit, and everything.
he's obviously clearly a very intellectual fella, and he's some kind of like this Eastern Bloc samurai, thing where there's people who are just like balls, and like Theo Von is like such a peculiar, weird guy.
Yeah.
What an interesting way of thinking.
Yeah.
Right, Mr. Vaughn. I feel like every time I watch a podcast, I'm like, who?
Incredible.
Yeah.
What is going on in
What's
that
going on
brain?
with
Yeah,
such
but it's
natural
true. It's style. So like, hopefully we start to carve out our own uniqueness in that sense. And like Rogan, Lex, Theo, they're all like on different. It's not even a spectrum really. It's just like a spread in whatever direction of different like different styles. And yeah, we're hopefully staking this out. And I'm sure you had yours when you were.
How many trillions? How many trillions of interactions have you had by the time you get to be in your 20s and you're starting to get into like developing your career that are so wildly different and unique to just who you are as a person? Like the concept of what it must have been like to be a 5-year-old kid in India versus a 5-year-old kid in Los Angeles. It's fucking.
Yeah.
It's like it might as well be Mars. So lean into that, and just same way, like if you have a 28-inch inseam and you're a short, stocky dude, you're not going to play like this game of like this elaborate guard.
Yeah.
And the same way as like if you're this guy with a wrestling background and you're built like fucking him, go ahead, smash pass, let's go. That's what I think.
What'll take you further.
Yeah.
So like, your style in broadcasting or Rogan style in podcasting, and just go with what'll take you furthest, and don't try and be something you're not. And that's
dude, that's like the key to so much shit. And I, like I said, I'll say it a million times, I'm no expert, but I couldn't make this amalgamation of all these guys I thought were cool and then create this goulash and then be that. I had to just take the time to unplug from all of it and find out who I really was and stuff. And I'm a pretty peculiar guy. I really like super nerdy hipster shit, but I also want to pump iron all day and listen to metal and wear my leather jacket. I don't really fucking have any apologies for it anymore. When you're 22, you're like, well, I don't know. I mean, because I love pussy. It's like I don't care. Like all I care about is
that's your North Star.
Yes,
it's like whatever will get me more of this, I will do that. I don't care.
I spent so much time, kind of like trying to pretend like I didn't. Not like I wanted to not be a celibate or something, but my point was like I'm a gross poonhound, but it doesn't mean that I don't have respect for women. I'm a married man now. I've been married happily for 11 years, and but I was just that guy. I really did love going and meeting new chicks and subsequently, hopefully, having sex with them.
What a joy.
But it didn't mean I had to be this like weird Lothario with my shirt open to my fucking belly button.
Especially when you're traveling, like you hit up a new city or something.
Tell us.
You probably didn't have to. You probably didn't have to speak much to get women. You seem like you got the looks, you got the height.
I'm not gonna be that guy. I never really struggled with girls, even like when I was first really committed to it, freshman year, 8th grade, whatever.
Yeah, me neither.
It seemed, but I will tell you, I was not that guy. I wasn't like the biggest ladies man by any stretch of the imagination out of like my crew. Then I got on TV.
That'll do it.
And it changed, and it was so much more than like the stereotype or the mythology of like, we'll just get on. No, it really was fucking crazy.
It's like a blue check like a couple months ago, what that was like. It's the same. I mean, probably even.
I would say much more. Being on
TV,
TV, I don't think that equates to a blue check.
No, it helps. But I mean, any of that, like just like I'm sure being extremely wealthy would change the game.
Yeah.
I'm sure being
status,
an incredible part of professional athlete,
money.
Professional athletes and rock stars. Even if the chicks don't like that, but there's something incredibly appealing about a man who obtains power. Right?
There's a Bobby Lee story. He talks about. He's like,
Bobby Lee's a great example.
He was banging some chick. He said her name. She was like a 10, and you remember as he was banging her, he started thinking back to that like start comedy poster. Like he was a total loser, and it was like a comedy class or a begin start your open mic, and he's like, I'm so glad I did that. Because that started, and because it's not that the story, looks, and I'm like, let's start writing jokes right now, Bobby. Let's fucking get the knock thing happening.
Yeah, do you write more jokes now?
You don't write. You told me the other day, right?
So it's back to like trying to not force or trying to be what your idea of a comic is. One way of doing that is to very loosely write. So maybe you have a rough idea of this is the punch or how I'm going to get to it. It is lazy. I think here's the thing. There's two.
We didn't say it.
There's two strategies. One strategy is if you can get a bunch of stage time, and in Austin you can, And also, you can basically gig every night. You could do 3 spots a night.
So
It's become a mini
build
Boston, New York, LA.
relationships.
It's amazing.
100%. You build a relationship
So many people
with
from there
guys.
have moved here. They're like
They will adapt to your schedule. So let's say if I got to leave jiu-jitsu at this time, I could organize it so that you're doing a bunch of stops, a bunch of spots, and that you have to write less because you write on stage. And that's very real and a very powerful form of writing.
So you like write a little something and then you like try it out with
well,
the audience.
sometimes you'll
or-
just be carried away on some tangent, maybe responding to a specific situation. A waitress dropped a glass or something, or something you said. There was a bunch of Indians sitting in the front row, so you're like, "Oh, my brother," you started talking some shit, and then you're like, "Oh, that made everyone laugh." So I already know it works. It's almost like writing in reverse.
Yeah, you
The
reverse
jokes-
engineer it. Yeah.
And then it's like starting with the end in mind. Like,
And it's
you wanna get
experience,
good
like
at
you were
crab
saying
ride?
before, like you. Yeah.
Like you want to get good at crab ride, just start in the crab ride, then
Yeah,
you're good
go
at the crab
from
ride,
there.
and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
you figure out how to
Yeah.
get to the crab
It's like
ride.
you get good on the back, or get good at even taking the back. You start on the back, and then as you lose it, you see what's holding on to the back. What's the last thing that like, if I lose this, then I lost the back, and then you kind of reverse engineer it. So
It's amazing too what you realize about yourself, and I think it's put on steroids when you're dealing with alcoholism and addiction, because I had an incredible, powerful experience with this 20 years ago. My friend, really close one of the closest friends I have in my life. I started kindergarten with this guy, and we're still friends. You know, he just recently got clean and sober, and he was talking to me. He just celebrated a year, and we were talking on the phone because he still lives back in Los Angeles. Or I'd be much more kind of physically involved with him.
yeah.
But we were talking, and he's like, it's amazing how much stuff I really don't like that I thought I liked.
Like what?
Like
What
the
do you think?
veneer was
Like-
taken away from him, where he was spending every Monday night at this bar because of Monday Night Football, and he realized really quickly, he's like, I don't want to be. These people are fucking annoying, and there's no food for
Yeah.
me to eat, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like when he was like, I like going there because I can get hammered.
Yeah,
I like going
you
to this-
associate it with the
Yeah.
thing you're addicted to, so you're like, I got to go there to get the thing I'm addicted to,
Yeah.
and then you're like, you take that away, and you're like, I don't fucking care about
my
this. I don't wanna be
my
here.
couch at home with an HD TV is so much better for
Yeah.
Monday Night Football, and it was crazy. And then, but I also think like when you do commit to those things that mean something to you, even if you're fucking horrible at it, that's you learn things about yourself. That's what the biggest part about. I always say on my podcast, Mikey Likes You, by the way, shameless plug. But I always say on my podcast, the biggest thing about lifting weights for me had nothing to do with biceps or abs, had nothing to do with it. It was that I made a commitment to myself. I made a promise to myself, and I kept it. And that changed the way I thought about what I could do with anything. Because the first time I squatted 95 pounds and I didn't make it, and it hurt so bad, and my form was terrible, and I fell down. And the fact that in a couple years' time would put 3 plates on and go to depth, I was like, I could do anything.
Yeah.
And there was no, unlike, I'm sure the same thing can happen with a lot of different endeavors in life. But the thing about lifting weights in particular is that it's purely clean. There's nothing else like that in your world, where like 100-pound dumbbell will weigh 100-pound dumbbell today or tomorrow, and it will weigh 100 pounds in India, and it will weigh 100 pounds in Pasadena, California. and
It's
it'll
such
weigh
an easy, tangible metric, and you could see the number go up as
literally
your work.
so clean.
Yeah.
It's jiu-jitsu, even like jiu-jitsu, and I love jiu-jitsu. I love to train. I train all the time, and I want to train more. But there's a lot of outside variables.
Yeah, it's
You
messier,
can walk
yeah.
to you can happen to live next to the shittiest fucking academy. There could be a bunch of bros there that don't like to train. Like, there's people that will only train with like lower belts than you. Like, there's a million factors that go into you not being able to progress maybe as much as you would want. Weightlifting, it's like, it doesn't matter. If you can't lift this now, practice, you will.
Yeah.
The only thing preventing you is your level of effort. And that was like really that clarity. It meant something to me,
Yeah, for me, in between college wrestling, my first year of college wrestling, and finding jiu-jitsu, I picked up weights, right? Or I'm sorry, actually, in between the end of high school wrestling and jiu-jitsu, I picked up weights. And something that I felt like really benefited me was just like I had to do, like if I was lifting weights, I might as well eat right. And if I was eating right, I might as well sleep right. And that like structured my life a bit better so that like, I don't know.
Makes
I just-
everything else fall in
excludes you from other
line.
things
that,
also.
like,
Definitely. Maybe it kept me away from like, some other dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
But it definitely gave my life structure. I think that gave me, a benefit long term.
Yeah, it means something to you. And like you were talking about comedy, and I'll never forget. There was a time and a place because I had become such close friends with a lot of like the really good and respected comics in the industry. In a town like LA too, like you could just they would get you on at a respected club. They're like, if you have what you want it, come on, you know, you go on at 1 a.m., but you're at the fucking comedy. You know what I'm saying? Like there was that way. I mean, Schaub has been perfect example of that, and I know that like the subreddits are devoted to shitting on Schaub and entire YouTube channel. But
man, he is so hated. It's crazy.
I will be the biggest apologist forever for him and defender of him because.
Cool.
Sure. Did knowing Rogan really well have a lot to do with it? Sure. Did being a celebrity in one world? Yeah, absolutely. But the fucking guy grinds so hard, and he's earned everything that's come his way. And so it's like, fuck you.
He did something really good at some point. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Like
I think
charity
he
stuff.
paid for Ray Borg's kids.
Didn't he like beat the shit out of someone who really deserved? Oh, fuck, what am I talking about? He like defended someone or like someone was. I'm gonna Google this. But he did something. He like saved someone from something.
What were you about to say?
I was gonna say that there were times and they'd be like, "Hey, let's go."
Get you on.
Can you put 5 to 10 minutes? I was like, I can do that. So I'd go and I'd be in the green room, and you'd talk to these guys and gals too. You know, Whitney Cummings would shoot by, or you know, Eliza Schlesinger, and there were people who would be like, "Oh, I showed up on Thursday, so I'm good. Maybe I'll see you guys." And there were people who were like, "This is my first stop for tonight.
Yeah.
I'm gonna drive across the street to the Improv, and then I'm going all the way to Santa Monica because
they're grinding. They're grinding,
and you're
really
like,
hard.
because it really means something to you, and it really meant something to them. And I realized very quickly it didn't to me. And there's a lot of like peace in that, because I think, especially with social media and pressures being so overwhelming and ubiquitous, we trick ourselves into thinking we're really into something that we're so not into. And there's no shame into saying like, well, I haven't meditated in 6 weeks, but I really, it means a lot to me. It's a really important. You know, it's like, no, it's not, because if it meant a lot to you, you know,
words
like,
and actions don't.
Lifting weights and grappling and my daughter mean a lot to me. I will move. I always say like, I didn't have time to put up a podcast this week. And the reality is like, if it was really important to me, I would have found a way. You know,
you do podcast solo.
I do. Yeah.
That seems pretty tough.
That's something that seems tough to me.
That takes talent.
It isn't to me now. Not that I'm so great. It isn't. But I would prefer. I don't like. The reason I never liked stand-up is because it's a beautiful art, and it's probably the most pure form of performance, in my opinion. But it's a performance. The reason I fell in love, the reason I had a passion for radio more than anything else ever in my life, was for two reasons. One, it was the first time in my life someone told me I was good at something. And someone who's really good at it, who's making millions of dollars, they're like, you did great. That was awesome. That was a great bit. And I was overwhelmed. I couldn't believe it. I was like, put goosebumps on my spine. But also,
first time you hear that is life-changing.
Keeps you going.
Yeah.
The best,
motivating.
You realize real quick, the best people on the air were the most natural and conversational, right? It was like the people who could just be themselves the most.
It's the easiest for them, yeah.
And even though you're not acting when you're doing stand-up, it's a performance. You're taking a pre-prepared idea and bit, and you're good. Yeah. And I would do stand-up, and all I wanted to do was crowd work, because I'd be like, look at that fucking guy over there with a tap-out shirt on, who's 340 pounds of pure blood. I must unpack this.
His heart's about to
tap
out.
There's and I would just, everything would go out. I just love the idea of exactly what we're doing right now. I feel like I'm in my Zen moment because we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
And that is the antithesis of what stand-up has become, you know?
Back and forth with the crowd.
I've always been pretty bad at speaking. So when I started a podcast. I was like, this might help me one day.
Yeah, it's working. You WWE.
When you say
stuff,
bad
right?
at speaking, do you mean you didn't like public speaking, or you found that you literally were not good at communicating?
Well, when I was younger, I had a bit of a speech impediment, so I had to work on it.
What?
Like
Wow.
yeah, like no. Oh, I mean, I did have a lisp. I got past that, but I had a bit of a lisp and a bit of a speech impediment in like elementary school.
still have it.
It's lingering. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something that I had to work on. And I think when I was living in New York, I was like, I saw value in the podcast world. So I did a few episodes with friends and solo, just so I could practice speaking.
You had your own for a while before we even went to Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah, in like 2019, 2020. I just saw value. I was like, if I get good at talking, I'm sure it'll benefit me somehow. And it even helps with like teaching at seminars. You know what I mean? I'm more
For sure. Helps with teaching, period, I think.
Makes you concise and whatnot.
I was talking about he saved 3 kids from a car wreck.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was
Wow.
talking. Remember that?
Who's
Yeah,
that?
that was like a big story.
People
he
don't care. All they care about is how bad his
I was trying
I
to
know he's literally like a saint. I don't know the full details, but like he went back to save them in some way, and like a woman confirmed, Rita Campos, it says confirmed.
Do you know more details about this?
I don't, but I know Schaub really well. Like we're actually close, and
He's clearly a very good person. Like you can't hate. Come on, like.
but I would say, even though like I said that about like we were really close. But here's a better example, because I like Brendan. I again, I have no problem defending him, but like I really knew Orlando. Like I saw the vulnerable
really
side.
close
Like
with
I saw the vulnerable side of a guy who is this fucking tough maniac.
What is a vulnerable side of a guy like that? Like to me, the exterior is so dense.
You 9 times out of 10, the more impenetrable, the more invulnerable. Also, it's
softer the
see
core.
those extremes. The guys that are that hardcore when it comes to being tough are also really passionately emotional and vulnerable too. And when they open that door, you know, some of the most moving moments I've ever had in AA meetings and NA meetings were almost always veterans or guys who have spent a long time in jail, like real hardcore gangsters. And they would these were people you didn't question their manliness, but when you open that door, they put that same level of passion into being vulnerable. And it was really, that's why I always loved country music, because I loved hip hop, and I like the idea of constantly talking about your invulnerability and your omnipotence. And it's like, I'm the best MC, I'll fucking crush everyone. And that's dope. Yeah. But the fact that you could hear guys like Waylon and Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash and these guys who were fucking hard dudes. These were hard men, but they would also be really vulnerable. Like, my heart's broken, my whole life's over. And there was something really appealing about that, you know? And there's like, I don't know. It's really hard. I think a lot of stuff gets watered down when so many people have kind of a public persona. You know, like when I was a kid, if you wanted to have someone judge a picture of you, you had to be a fucking model. No one ever took a picture of me and went like, fuck, this guy, look at your stupid eyelashes or something. No, that's your life. Everyone's life is that now. And there's something like really watered down about it. And then you get into this, I'll get back to like Schaub and Orlando for him. Those are people who other people have their own relationship with them. They may not like them. They may not, and that's okay too. I just like don't to my face. I'm not some big tough guy. I'm not you. I'm not gonna fuck you up, but I'll walk out. You understand? Like my relationship with them is that. My relationship with Schaub is that he's always tried to help me out, and he's always been behind the scenes, really cool and honest guy, and I like him a lot. And he works really everything he has. He's like worked really hard for. He's constantly grinding, but there's clearly lots of people who have a lot of criticism for him, and that's fine. You do your thing. Like, just don't. If I come on your show, if we go out for a cup of coffee, like
courtesy,
just pump your brakes on that shit. You know?
Yeah. Man, I almost don't even remember not being in an era where there wasn't Instagram and just every single day just bombarded with like
I think
know what they're up to,
for
I know what he's up to. I know what they're doing. I know what they're, and they know what I'm doing. It's
12.
like,
I had Facebook. 12 years old.
yeah, I think I was about the same.
yeah,
Like 12.
to access to too much information can't be good if you're like, like how do you feel about the younger generation? Because when you're growing up, you're not on Instagram all day. You're not on
Nope.
YouTube.
I didn't go on the internet till I was in my 20s.
Wow.
So
That's so that's so different. It's gonna be unheard of. It's probably already like the kids now just.
I'm the last generation.
Yeah, for
I'm literally the last generation of kids or people who can have the ability to understand both worlds.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely lived in a world where the internet wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I beat off to magazines. The internet
Yeah.
didn't exist.
I think I
But then
just
I also-
missed that. I like right when I was like, this jerking off thing seems pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I used to.
Internet. I'm like,
Steal.
oh, this is on here? Oh, okay.
I stole a few magazines from my
Wow.
my nan's news agency.
Yeah.
Wow. I
Fuck
guess India maybe it's like a little further
I'd be
back.
on
it,
rolling
goes.
blades. I had these little rolling blades, and I'd roll in.
Rollerblades?
Yeah, rollerblades. I was on rollerblades, and I would take like
Wait, the four, like the balance or the
4, I think it was.
Wow,
Yeah,
like
I
the
got them from
retro
like one of
ones,
them
yeah.
shops.
That's
really good.
an interesting kind of
Can't
cultural
imagine
thing.
you on that.
Because there's Bollywood.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and it is a facsimile in some ways of Hollywood, but it also has its own personal cultural thing that they excel at. Is it the same way with pornography?
Maybe.
Like, does India have its Bollywood of adult stuff?
Everybody, I implore everybody to go look at the Indian category of porn because a lot
was
of
that the
good
magazine
work's
you had?
been
It was
done.
in.
No,
Indian
it
porn?
was. This is in Australia. This is in
Okay.
Bathurst. Yeah. I would like take like a car magazine and then I would put it behind it so no one could tell. Then I'd roll that bitch up and I'd skate the fuck out before
That's
anyone
a
could.
classic.
And
That's
then here's the
old,
problem,
man.
right? So then at that point, I was so young, I hadn't even discovered like jerking off. So I'm there, I'm just looking at it, I'm like, wow,
This
this
is
blood,
sick.
like
What do I-
damn.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, it's too risky to put the stolen item back.
You got
To go back
Oh,
to
no,
the scene of
that's
the
yours
crime.
now.
I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
So what I would do
were
is
gonna put it
I would
back?
go.
What?
No, I wasn't. I just went next door. There was like a fence, and I would just throw them.
Wait, you would just look at it and go, wow, damn, and then
I
you're
would
done,
go
so
into
you
the
go-
It's not a
bathroom.
murder weapon.
I was going to the bathroom, locking the door, all on my skates the whole time.
You just look through it.
Yeah, just have a fucking. And I would quickly get angry because I realized there was like a zoo or whatever, and all the women had like bikinis and stuff. So it was just lingerie. That wasn't good enough.
Nah.
But then there was one where you saw everything.
Yeah,
you know what I
alright,
mean? The hair and everything. I was like, wow. Just like a little line
A
of
line,
hair.
yeah,
I didn't
landing
know.
strip. That's what
I
they
was like,
Did the neighboring
wow.
house just have a stack of magazines in the yard?
Just imagine this porn magazine.
You caused some dude's divorce. And he's like, honey, I swear, it's not mine. It's not mine. I never wrote it. I would not buy this. And she's like, fuck you. Look, I see them.
Wild.
It's fucking amazing.
That's so funny. Your family's a typical like immigrant. You guys own business and whatnot.
Super Indian, man.
Super
My
Indian.
family. Even me, I speak like 3 different Indian languages.
He was super religious, long hair, had little Muslim.
He always
Sikh
loves to
style, whatever.
bring this stuff up.
I just
and
think it's
I
funny
get
that you made a
worried.
transition.
I get worried.
You've really gone.
I just don't want to get stabbed talking about anti-religion. Yeah,
It's a
It's
risk.
fine.
it's a risk.
It is, and it's also strange. Like, most Americans or most Westerners have a monolithic idea of Islam, and it's like, it runs the gamut. Like, an Indian Muslim is quite different from someone in like the mountains of Russia. Quite
I'm
different
a-
from someone in
difference, yeah.
Persia, in Iran. It's like,
I'm a Sikh, which is quite
Yeah.
like if you look at different denominations of Christianity, like they all have a lot of very similar beliefs. Jesus was born of a virgin, and he's God as well as There's a bunch of beliefs that they all share, and he's gonna come back and whatnot. With the Indian faith, one of the reasons it's so sectarian and there's so much conflict is like Hinduism, Sikhism, Islam. Even though there's some commonalities, they're really very different.
yeah,
Like there's a completely different God, completely different like ways of praying and whatnot. And oftentimes, even if you look nowadays, a lot of the countries that there's a lot of social cohesion is people kind of think the same, and that's safe and whatnot. Here, even in America, I notice it. when a country is way more divided, it puts everyone on edge.
Yeah.
As a Sikh Muslim, right? You guys,
A Sikh is completely different to Muslim.
Sikhs different.
Completely
All right,
different.
as an Indian, right?
Right.
You guys
Technically, I'm not even Indian.
All right, what are you?
So
What are you?
I'm a Sikh Punjabi. Punjab is the region, and then we were our own kingdom, and then the British annexed us, and then when the British left, we kind of joined India, but we're our own separate group, and then we even fought a civil war at one point with India. Or a lot of the Sikh population rose up in a kind of revolt.
It's like similar to like Taiwan. You know,
Okay.
It'd be like an
it's
ethnic
technically China, but
subgroup.
it's, you know,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
really.
I see. Do you guys discriminate against like lighter, darker colors?
Yeah.
There's a wide variety.
I mean, if you look at like the scriptural text, I think a lot of it'll talk about like love and equality and whatnot. But definitely there's the caste system, and it's very pragmatic. A lot of life decisions, like a person who's seen real poverty or seen bad circumstance will make, like I'm deciding to spend all my time doing jiu-jitsu and comedy. Who fucking does
That's
that?
a horrible
That's
game
a
plan.
terrible, like,
Yeah.
I said
This is
that
your
at,
long-term-
I said that
long-term
at the
plan.
shower at the 10th Planet. I was like, oh, they'd be like, why are you doing stand-up? I'm like, I can't do jiu-jitsu forever.
Yeah.
And they're like, what a safe bet. They're like,
That's
you know?
a good stability to fall back
Yeah,
on.
but I've
Yeah,
had
yeah.
like parents who were super cool, and they're like, oh, well, we couldn't do what we wanted. So
They're
you try to do
supportive.
what-"
Yeah.
Whereas the way they think is like, oh, you marry someone who's going to give you a sound financial future. And you make sure their families also have a certain level of comparable wealth.
It was a lot more black and white back then. Like, it's just, now there's so many complications. Like, now you want to go and
Yeah.
find yourself and shit.
like you're not gonna
that.
marry
You
a
wouldn't have to-
poor chick, right?
I don't know what I'm going to do.
It depends on how hot she is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
think,
I'm
like,
very susceptible. to,
He's listen. a lot changes when you're talking about straight men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can wax poetic about all these different things, but everything gets really narrowed down when it's a chick you find attractive.
Yeah.
Like
Shit goes out the window. You're just
Yeah.
like, I'll work around this.
how many
Yeah.
racist dudes, or even you hear the stories of like slave owners, like literally the most fucking committed to segregation and abuse of a different race. They'll fuck a hot black chick. I mean, I know guys.
Oh, bro.
Real like open racist, and they'll be like, yeah, but
Beyonce.
that doesn't count for chicks. It doesn't, you're like what?
I heard some rap lyric this morning. Vince was playing it.
Yeah?
This guy had the crazy. He said something like, "The pussy make people think it go crazy" or something, and it was very.
It is.
profound.
They're poets.
It's
If you-
true.
even-
It does. It would motivate. It's
so
wild
ingrained
what
into
it'll
you.
motivate you to do.
Yeah.
Wild.
Star Wars.
Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters, right? You got to reproduce. You got to keep it
pass
going.
on
It's
your
a big
genes.
Everything else
That's
is
why
gone.
we're all here,
That's
man.
it,
That's
yeah,
it.
If everything else is gone, at least you can still get pussy. And
Well,
if
I
you-
reckon-
And if your dick don't work, that's rough. Life changes after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're once you like find that one girl that you're like, all right, I'm gonna just double down on this. I feel like you have like a distraction, like wealth of distractions lifted. So you're like, well, I guess now is all this other shit I could do. Or like the opposite happens. Like once you start thinking about pussy, you're like, all right, this doesn't matter, that doesn't matter, this doesn't matter. I'm just gonna do whatever I can to get more of that. That's
It's
pretty cool. Like
crazy.
crack.
No, you hit the nail on the head because I can't tell you how much more liked I am by women now that I'm married.
Wow.
Because
yeah, you're at the
some don't
game.
care.
You're at the game.
I don't look at women at
You're
all.
the hunter.
Sometimes
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
flaming hot chicks. Well, I'll be
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
It's
but
like, fuck.
I'm happily married, man.
Yeah.
I just look at them as a incredibly attractive human being,
Yeah.
and it's I was gonna say I never have had the experience of girls openly approaching me, but it's happened a lot lately, and I can't believe how like girls at the store will just be like, like, are you? What's your name? And I'm like, what the fuck? Because I busted my wedding ring once lifting weights, and then I also had to take it off a bunch, to grapple. I would take it off to train, and I lost it doing that. So now my wife is even fully understanding. She's like, just fucking, because especially working, like living on a farm, she's taking it off all the time. So she's like, so I'll go around appearing to be this single guy. And it's all because like I don't feel like, and I was never particularly gross as far as like how I would treat women, but there's a difference. Like I relax so much more being around chicks because
you
there's
don't
not
care
even the
as much.
threat of me having to
yeah.
impress them. I just
Yeah.
like,
Dude,
Because
if it wasn't
previously you have an objective. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I have a goal today. Let's
and even if like, especially in the entertainment industry, I'm sorry to, but in the entertainment industry, a lot of times at work you would meet new
Wow.
flaming hot chicks. So even though I'm like, okay, well, there's cameras here and cameramen and gaffers, and I just met this girl, but in the back of your head, you're like, do what you can to make sure that you can keep hope alive.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Now I don't. I just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I doesn't
That's
even
gone,
think
yeah.
about it. You know.
Yeah.
that's insane.
That spot in your brain is open up for other shit, and also they probably like subconsciously see that you don't really. They're used to everyone like, whoa, they're fucking. Who is that? Who is that? And then you're just like indifferent.
Especially hot chicks. Especially
Yeah.
hot chicks. Especially famous hot chicks.
So you're used to that reaction.
You're like,
So-
why aren't you looking at me?
Yeah.
Well, and also they're so used to people changing dramatically to talk to them.
Yeah.
Like-
and you just don't. So you're like, what the fuck?
I got
I
this-
used to get in trouble a lot. Again, I'm sorry. to interrupt
All
you.
good, all good.
But I used to get in trouble a lot with program directors and producers of shows because I would say things so. I'm not saying like,
Nonchalantly
they weren't
or
like they weren't like vulgar, but like really forward things to hot chicks, and they would get in my ear on the little microphone. They'd be like, "You can't." I'm like talking about how I would masturbate to like if I met Alyssa
Like,
Milano.
hello, I jerked off to you.
Jesus.
I met Alyssa Milano, and this was on Access Hollywood, so I couldn't say I beat off on the radio show. I'd be like, "Listen, I beat off you." So this is, but on
Listen, I
it's
found a
Access-
pile of magazines next to my Indian friend's house. You were in there quite a bit.
and Alyssa Milano was on, and I
Yeah,
said,
it's
"Listen,"
callback. Comedian trick.
and I'm live on Access Hollywood, it was like really family friendly, and I go,
Oh, that's huge.
I had
That's
a
up there.
giant crush. I mean, growing up, honestly, I would watch Who's the Boss specifically because you're so hot, and there was a lot of adolescent time spent alone.
Yeah.
with you on my mind, and,
Meditating to
and
you, yeah.
the female co-host is laughing. She's fucking at ease in my. You got
Yeah.
Sure
That's
enough-
when you know you did something right. When people are yelling at you and other people are laughing at what you're saying, it's too late.
Sure
to
enough,
fucking-
every time, whether I go full hardcore on the radio or I'm kind of making it family friendly, every time. Interview ends, cameras turn off, and the girl goes like, "Thank you so much for like being real, like making it nice for me and enjoy." And I go, "You fucking hear that? Anybody?" She still has a lapel mic on. Did you fucking hear that?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
People just want you to be authentic. It's not so much. It's just like people change when they see that presence and shit. And like,
Before we go off topic, I got
Yeah.
this Isaac story. So Isaac's a friend of ours.
Yes.
Is he Isaac?
Yeah,
Isaac.
with a Z. with a
Isaac.
Z.
His name's Isaac.
Yeah.
everyone said, I know, everyone's like Isaac, but it's Isaac.
Well, no, he's an Australian name, so we keep
Isaac.
the
Hey,
A's.
okay, that's my point. That
We
was my
extend
question
our
because
vowels.
and you say is cotton candy's fairy fluff.
Fairy floss.
That's the best. Listen,
Fairy floss.
Fairy floss.
English-speaking countries have things where they say things. We're speaking the same language, but you say
Yeah.
different shit. Brits say completely different shit sometimes.
Yeah.
Americans have our thing, and Australians. And of course, there's a handful of other countries, but that they win. That's way better than fairy fluff is way better than cotton candy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I rang him because I was working in a bar at the time. I started working security in a bar, and I knew he was very, at the time, successful with chicks, you know?
Uh-huh.
And I was like, get some advice off him, whatever. And he gave me the absolute worst advice possible because he's a totally different, like, he's a, you know, kind of a...
Chicks
at the
approach
time,
him. They-
especially,
they
he had
seek
like...
him out.
he'd be the sort of guy chicks would approach him.
He could do anything.
So
could
he said
just-
to me,
yeah.
Bobby, listen, it's simple. If a chick looks at you for more than 2 seconds, she wants to fuck you.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
That's really not true. It's really not true.
I'm like,
I'm sorry, Isaac.
now I'm armed with this heuristic. Let's.
You're also working there, so they have to talk to you.
It's the
You're
worst
staring at-
situation.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like,
What-
taking the ID. I know where they live and shit. They better be smart.
You would never take.
An Indian man to be.
No. But you were just like my point about that is you're explaining this man to be quite handsome and probably
yeah.
like weirdly charismatic.
Yeah,
like okay, don't if you had a young fighter, okay, you would never let John Jones tell him This is what you got to do to make it in MMA because anything works for him. He's fucking
Exactly.
okay.
It's an
There's some
exception.
guys who are so fucking good looking and they're so like they're just rules don't apply. So don't listen to that. You got to listen. Mike
Well,
Tyson would be a great guy to talk to
I
because
went up to a chick.
there was a progression there. There was hard
Yeah.
work. There was a
grind, climb to the top.
I approached a chick, and I would do like corny shit that occasionally worked. Like I'd go up to a chick and I'd be like, "Oh, can I like borrow your lighter?" And then I'd be like, "Look, I don't actually see even smoke, but I'm kind of into you." And I had a little story, and I would come clean, and then it'd
What
be
do
like
you
a little
say when you get the lighter and you're like, I don't actually.
like here and there, whatever. Anyway, I still have no idea what's going on. It's rough, but I went up to this girl in the bar I was working at, and I just told her this. I'm like, "Hey, I saw you looking at me," and a buddy of mine told me if a chick looks at you for a bit, like 2 seconds, she's into you. That's what I said to her. And she was like, I was just looking at how weird you look.
Oh my god!
I was
She choked that bitch out.
So fucking
I
funny.
was crushed,
That's
leveled.
hilarious though.
Leveled.
Wow, what a great story.
But
I
material.
was
that's
just
material
looking at
right
how
there.
weird you look.
Did she laugh after she said or like
It was just awkward.
What did you say?
what a
What
fucking
did you
cunt?
Yeah,
It
what,
was-
seriously, what if
no,
that's not a
chicks
joke?
in
you're such a
Australia
cunt.
way more savage than here.
They're
Really?
like
Yeah,
Boston
yeah. They're
chicks.
just
It's
like,
a
what
kind
the
of the
fuck
same
are you
fucking
thinking?
DNA.
Wow. Yeah.
Like
They
Bostonian chicks are like they'll just destroy
shoot
you.
Bam!
Destroy
Ah,
you, yeah.
shooting.
Dude,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did an about turn. I walked out of the bar.
You just went. You're like, I gotta
I'm
go
like,
now.
I'm chilling outside till. Wow.
When I was living in Jersey, I met this girl. She was pretty cute, and I was so alone that I was like trying to gravitate, and I also just want to get high, so I didn't care. But this girl was cute, and so she was from Philly, and she's like, "Yeah, you should come down to Philly for the weekend," and I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's go." So I'm part, and I was like, "Man, those girls were fucking." Brutal, like they would
Wow.
destroy dudes in the
them
club.
cry.
I had chicks coming up to me when I'd be waiting, like we'd wait in high school outside the class, line up with their books and shit to go in. And I feel something touching my ankle. And I'm like, what the fuck is touching my ankle? And I look down, and this one chick is putting her hand around my ankle trying to measure it, and another chick is recording it.
Oh, bro.
And bro,
so
talk
mean.
about getting close to tears. I was like,
You were like,
I was like,
can't believe a girl is touching me right now.
You know what though? Okay, look. That's the 2% of chicks that ruin it for all of them. Most girls would hear this.
imagine-
They would hear that story. They'd be like, "Are you? What
I
a?
feel bad for you.
That's fucking ridiculous."
Imagine a
you know?
dude. Imagine a dude goes up to like a heavier girl. We're like filming.
We were just curious.
We'd get fucking executed. We'd get like
No, they might burn you.
Yeah.
Like just for a moment.
we'd get pepper sprayed or
Imagine
something.
we
therapy.
go to the bar tonight, and I go, "Excuse me, miss, I'm measuring your fupa. My friend over here is going to film
jump
it."
on the scale. Jump on the scale.
We'd be on the cover of BuzzFeed.
You'd be like, I'll give you $10 if you're under 200 pounds right
Oh
now.
my god, that is a double standard right there, huh? Why are they allowed to do that to my
Well,
friend?
but
We
again,
can't
look,
do
there's
the
also
opposite?
there's some shitty drunk frat guys like that. Again, that's the 2% of dudes that it ruins it because they're like,
For sure,
One
yeah.
time, my friend had a guy measure my fucking poopa, and you're like, what? Yeah, but that guy sucks. Like, you know.
There's this trend. There's this trend on social media, where fat girls, 'cause they call themselves this, right?
Yeah,
They say fat girls. They'll be like, "What a fat." The caption will be, "What a fat girl eats in a day." And they'll just vlog like on Instagram
Wow.
all of their meals, and it'll just be like cheese for breakfast, cheese for snack,
Wow.
cheese for
Wow.
lunch,
Wow.
just cheese all day.
That's what I need.
Yeah.
Solid cheese. That's it. That's a commitment.
How is that appealing?
And she'd be like, "Oh, because I'm trying to lose weight, walnuts and cheese."
Oh, they're going low carb.
Fats,
yeah.
But that's it. You know, a lot of people ask me because I do like this health and fitness based thing. That they ask me these questions and they're like, I'm doing keto. I'm if it's a guy, I'm 285.9. I go, oh okay, and they'll be open. I'm really overweight. I'm just trying so hard. And I go, okay, give me an idea. And they're like, I'm low carb because I'm trying to lose weight. And I go, okay, that probably will really work for you. It's a little easier, a little more sustainable. Give me some ideas. And he'll be like, oh, I'll have a block of cheddar with a 16-ounce ribeye. And I was like, oh, well, bro, it's low carb. Congrats.
Yeah.
But that's 1,400 calories
Yeah,
for
yeah.
one meal, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the same thing would happen with like the paleo thing, and the same with carnivore. Like whatever the trendy shit is, you hear people at the jiu-jitsu academy or at the weightlifting gym, you hear them talking, be like, yeah, I'm paleo. All I've had is I had a jar of apple butter, and I washed it down with a jug of maple syrup, but it's paleo. And you're like,
paleo,
who gives
yeah.
a fuck? Like
They just slap a name on it, and it's like, oh, I could do this, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's just such. It's just, if you're looking for a loophole, you've already lost. Like you can't do that. You have to actually.
Some things, they almost defeat the spirit of what you're trying to achieve. I had this thing where I was like, I'm going to, for this year, read this many pages. And sometimes I'd just be flying through the pages to fulfill my
get your
commitment for the
goal.
day.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the actual idea behind my, goal was to learn more knowledge and not just get through pages.
that's
So
my
you're
that's my
defeating the
problem.
purpose, yeah.
I went on a rant about it. I don't rant, but because in one way I go, well, it's amazing because it's getting people out. But like they'll do the like 10,000 rounds or 1,000 rounds a year jiu-jitsu
Rounds?
stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
like that's kind of become like a hashtag 1,000 rounds. And they could see they start January 1st.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know this.
and I go like, well, okay, bravo, that's awesome because that's a lot of hard work, 1,000 hours.
Yeah.
But how many of those hours are you fulfilling
Yeah.
like checking off a box? Which is,
Exactly.
like, is
It's
that
better
really-
than nothing? But
it's better
like,
than nothing, but wouldn't in your guys it's high level shit in this room? Wouldn't you rather see
Quality.
so 1,000 hours is what 200 hours a week, something like that?
I'm not the
50
math guy.
50
You're asking the wrong set of people. Yeah.
Spelling
20,
math.
sorry, it's like 20 hours a week, okay? Because 50 something weeks in a year, 52. So it's like 20 weeks a year. Wouldn't you rather see instead of 20 hours a week, 10 hours of focused like
Yeah.
I
I think
mean,
it just depends on your goals. Like if you don't care about getting better and you're doing it as an exercise to be healthier, lose weight, whatever.
yeah, just showing up. Yeah, you're
Then
right.
just show up. Especially if like that's all you can muster. You just need to be consistent and you just got to show up. It's gonna help. But if you're actually trying to like improve your knowledge, like you're saying, which I think is like a better, healthier thing, you're
Get
leaving
more out
stuff
of
on the
it.
table. If you're not actually trying to learn. If you're going to compete, and if you're probably also more likely to stick with it if you see improvement. So I think what you're saying will take you further, and then you're going to keep going. What happens after the end? You're done. Then what? I did
That's
my job.
like
then,
legitimate improvement too, like legitimate sustainable improvement.
Yeah.
The same thing. I'm sure you probably met a million guys who they just want to get big. They're thinner guys, and they're like, well, now you gain 35 pounds, and 30 of it's fat, and bravo on gaining 5 pounds of muscle, but you've just powered because it got you to your goal quicker. But that's not, you know what I'm saying? I would rather see the guy gain 20 pounds in a year and 18 of it being muscle. And you're like,
Yeah.
I know it sucked part of the time, but you can keep this forever,
Yeah.
Like,
I've gained I've gained quite a bit of weight since lifting weights. But
How much weight?
50.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean
5-0?
I went from like cutting from like 185 to 170 in high school, and then I'm like 235.
So
now.
how old were you at that age?
It's 2014,
2014.
How tall are you?
6'3".
Okay, that's maybe changes things. But I was thinking like you were 6'3", 185. Like I get up to 185 sometimes, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
That you were thinner, but man, like you were really like a lot thinner.
Yeah, I
You
shredded
were
down
what,
to like one. I
16?
wrestled 170.
17, 16?
I graduated
That's
high school
my-
at 17.
Almost
yeah.
my size, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I built this. We're the same height.
You could do this.
Yeah. Anyway, I was trying to say.
Well,
Maybe.
and I'm not saying you can't do amazing things. I'm not saying you couldn't put on muscle, but
Girls might still measure
let's
your
get,
ankle.
let us circle back to the very first thing we
bad
started
call,
talking
bad,
about. He has genetics to be a bigger,
That's
muscular
true.
guy.
Yeah.
And I'm a small guy. I always dreamed of being like.
Have you ever been fat?
No, never fat. I've been puffy from gaining.
Yeah.
But I've never been like I don't ever want to say it. And the reason I point that out is not my ego. I don't want to pretend like I know what it's like to be that guy where you come in a room and people are like, look at fatty. I've been puffy. I've had the puffy cheeks and stuff because I've tried to, and I was juicing and I was eating everything in sight and I was fucking deadlifting, squatting all day.
Yeah.
But I've never been fat. But I also realized very quickly I'll never be Ronnie Coleman. You know, that's never gonna happen. I'll never be.
Even natural. I mean, he'll still look better than everybody.
of
He's
course.
Like 19, 20.
There's a scene in one of his training videos where he goes back to his house in Louisiana, where he grew up, and his mom's there. He's like a 7-year-old black woman. He's never in like the backwoods of Louisiana. This is New Orleans. She's there in the cut.
Yeah.
Super country. She's never seen a gym in her life, and he's jokingly eating his like 7th serving of chicken and rice. He goes, "Mama, show him damn double bicep," you know, and she just jokingly goes, "Boom."
And she's like
They look,
yoked.
They look like my arms.
Wow.
They look like
Really?
my arms.
Wow.
They didn't look like his, but they look like she had a
Wow.
peak and they're full. And you go like, oh.
Wow.
Like he
That's
started
why-
bodybuilding
Yeah.
as a joke to get a free membership when he was like 30. And,
Wow.
you know, some people were put, you know what I'm saying?
He was
like
already bodybuilding in the.
But my point
as
is
the
you're
chromosomes were coming
you're a
together,
tall
he was
guy.
like-
You're a very, very naturally thin guy. Your bone structure's different.
But there's no
You
hope.
couldn't do but you could gain 25 pounds of solid muscle.
I've also done kind of odd things. Like I was a vegetarian from like 9 till 17.
Mm-hmm.
So I ate almost no protein and just tons of candy.
Set
My
you
parents
back a
had
little
like
bit.
a
Yeah.
convenience store.
Who did somebody push that on you to be vegetarian?
We just the whole family kind of adopted.
Was it
We
was it
kinda went
religious
Indian
based?
thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's a high correlation between vegetarians and homosexuality.
Wow.
Well, you can
you have to say about
you can fit through small gaps easier.
You're the exception.
I've read the stats. You know, I'm just
Yeah, I'm sure.
Is that
everything
actually
you
a
say is
statistic?
factual.
I can't read.
Oh, okay.
That's a good point.
So all the Buddhists are homosexuals. What are you saying?
Oh,
Have you seen the Dalai Lama?
Dalai Lama? Huge. He's just
back
burying his
to
dick
this
in
one.
shit pipe all day.
Unbelievable.
I'm guessing you've seen the "sucked my tongue" video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's your thoughts
What's your
on that?
take on? Our friend is offended.
I'm gonna stay
Did
out
he
of
just
it.
get caught out of character, or is that? Like,
I have to recuse myself from because I already went into it
oh, okay.
with a terrible feeling about the Dalai Lama. Fuck that guy. This is the way. Okay.
You're crushing it.
No. The idea of Buddhism and Zen thought is amazing. I don't want to see people slaving, single moms scrimping to pay $500 to hear this asshole speak when he spends all his time hanging out with the Beastie Boys and Bono and making fucking when probably there's some dude meditating in Vietnam right now that we've never heard of that will be able to open up way more doors than and that's the shit I don't like, you know. So fuck him. I feel like I have a bias. So I'm not the best guy to tell you about how I feel about his.
Bobby
tongue
looked
sucking.
up to the Dalai Lama for years. It was that video crushed you a little bit. Would you
gonna stay out of this.
would you have sucked his tongue if Mr. Lama was like,
Mr.
"Get over here,
Lama.
Bobby"?
I'm pretty into mindfulness.
Yeah.
I spent a while. I lived in like Buddhist retreat centers and like even a monastery like for months
Really?
over time. Yeah,
With the vow silence commitment and everything?
yeah, Vipassana. So I was
You
doing
didn't
That's
talk.
awesome.
There's no way.
There's no
Yeah.
way.
No talking. I would get up at 3:30 in the morning, sit cross-legged, 10, 12 hours a day and stuff.
Okay, but to my point, you probably encountered a ton of gentlemen
Absolutely.
that would be able to enlighten.
Very committed.
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
But I also, there's people who, like Joseph Goldstein, he runs, I think, IMC in Barry, Massachusetts.
You write Buddhist Mind or something like that.
Yeah, he's written a lot. He's like responsible for bringing mindfulness
Yeah,
to the
okay,
West.
that's the
Like
same guy.
Jack Cornfield, these guys. And they've, for years, quoted him and spoken about how it felt like to be in their presence. So there's nobody here on earth that I think that's a perfect human being and just they can't make mistakes or just even be capable of very evil acts. So if it can, I just feel like from what we know now, it's not sufficient proof to say he's some kind of a predator or whatever. Either he had sort of a situation. Some people say he had like a situation where,
The Joe Biden moment. It's
brain
fart.
He's 80, right?
regardless of
Is he 80?
how much
don't know.
esteem you hold him in, that was a bad look.
Can't
You know what I mean?
defend the-
I don't care if he's your best friend. You know, you got home after that kid thing and you were like, brother.
you can't. There's a territory. Look,
You know?
when dudes in jail who rape and murder and fuck you, when they are upset at you, like you know, that is the ultimate And it's true. Like Louis C.K. told a joke about like we need to make pedophilia less bad so that they don't end up killing the kids.
Well,
but it was dark.
Wait, what was
His joke was he was like the problem is because pedophilia is so bad. It's so horrible, and we all agree it's the worst of the worst.
Sure, for sure.
Criminals don't like pedophilia.
Yeah.
So, but because of that, they have to end up killing the kid a lot to hide this.
true.
He's like, so we need to roll it back.
So when they rape the kid, they kill it.
Oh my god, that is so fucked up and so.
But my point is, like, you could get away with that's one. Like, there's no coming back. Anything to do that smells of pedophilia.
My dad is like, he'll come back from the shop, and he'll have a bunch of like off candy or whatever, and he'll just give it out to kids in the neighborhood. With no intention of fucking any of the kids, you know. But in Indian villages and stuff, it's very normal to give money to children and give things. So again, in the white culture, I tell him, I'm like, you drive a white van, don't fuck around. You know what I mean?
You know what though? But
Don't go ahead and out
But
candy.
I understand.
It's the wrong idea.
Like just socially, there's cues, there's things I understand, even if it might imply or it might insinuate something that's unseemly for that site. Just like in Indian culture, when I meet a lady or a woman or someone, I won't shake their hand or I won't touch them in a specific way. You know,
Just 2 seconds of eye contact.
It's just the conventions of that culture, and if you're unsure of them. Some of that behavior seems weird because so much of our behavior is dictated by cultural conditioning, and that varies so vastly place to place.
So all of that was to say that you still like the Lama.
You can't.
Look,
no, he's not saying that. You can't defend that.
You can't defend that. Is
no
what I'm
one,
saying.
even
no
in
one
their
defends.
culture, will be.
He
like,
doesn't defend it. He said, "I'm sorry."
there's
There's the apologetic. He shouldn't have done that.
I don't like
did
when
he
people are
actually suck the tongue.
I supposedly
'Cause it
the
cuts.
picture is
This
of
is
him,
the big question, right?
The pictures
Did
of
he
him putting the
actually-
tongue out, but I've never seen.
Me neither.
Yeah,
I've never seen the tongue
And that's a
suck.
common Tibetan greeting.
Is it
Yes.
okay? See, like I said, I
And
mean,
here's the other thing is, apparently, "eat my tongue" is a common said phrase, and this Buddhist site was saying that he misspoke.
Are those guys also
eat
vegetarian?
as suck. I'm more familiar with Theravadan Buddhism, which is a different school of Buddhism. Their rule is you cannot kill an animal. You shouldn't even kill a fly. You shouldn't take any life. However, if the animal wasn't killed for you, like you go to a grocery store and buy meat, that's okay. That's Theravadan Buddhism.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
I think it should be the opposite.
I said
yeah.
the same thing. I said the
Say
same
if you
thing.
kill it on your own and you eat
in
it,
the
like,
Sikh-
that's your shit.
The Sikh ethos is you take the animal yourself, and with a single stroke of the sword, you behead it with minimal.
If you got 2 strokes, though, it's bad.
Yeah, because a lot of it is like conditioning for warfare and getting you ready with
Learning
the
how to-
idea of like.
Well, also the reverence for the animal. I mean,
Yes,
it's the same thing. Like my friends who are vegan get so pissed off about me hunting, and I go, you pump your brakes a bit. I actually, if you want to choose to be vegan for moral reasons, that's awesome. Good for you. You do, but let's be clear. You have a really fucked up idea of how nature works.
It is so flawed. It is so fucked up.
I don't like seeing a beautiful deer in the crosshairs. Like it's a beautiful animal, but if I don't turn the lights out immediately with a high-powered rifle, it's not like it's going to go on to live a beautiful life with its family.
yeah. It's
No,
torn to
a
pieces.
bear's going to eat its asshole first, or it's going to
that's
freeze
how
to
they
death.
die.
Or and
There's no
and
good happy
I'm
ending.
doing. What am I doing? I'm turning the lights off. It had no concept. And if you, by the way, if you
Everything
don't
dies.
kill animals like one time,
Kill
like
the
that's
juice.
bad.
Oh my god.
That's bad hunting etiquette. You know, like just being like someone who's harming animals is bad. Dudes will absolutely not let you. That's not totally frowned upon. It's like the idea of a hunting etiquette. And then
Minimal
I'm taking it
suffering,
home and
like-
feeding it to my family.
Yeah.
It seems like there's a much higher reverence there than
Yeah.
just.
That's how nature works.
Yeah.
Got to feed the family. Got to go hunt. What do you hunt?
I have hunt a lot of wild pig, a lot of deer.
Yeah. You hunt consistently?
Not as consistently as I would not consider myself like a super experienced, but I
In Texas?
20 times in my life, yeah.
In Texas, you do this? Or?
I've only hunted in Texas once. I did most of my hunting in California and then Europe.
You ever see the guys in Texas hunting pigs from the chopper?
Yeah. My friend asked me to go with him.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't. Apparently, look,
Wow.
They need you to do that because the wild pig problem here is so extraordinary.
Yeah,
but
they're all over the place.
I for the same reason I didn't like duck hunting, I don't like a war of attrition where it's just like all day you're like boom, boom, boom. I like the connection. Like wild pigs is my favorite thing, especially in California. The boar, they taste great, but also they're fucking smart. Wow. And if you miss, you're fucked. They will come get you.
Wow.
There's no like scaredy cat little animal. You have to hunt. They're smart, and you have to track them a lot, and it takes a lot of effort. And a lot of times you don't come home with any animals because they hear you from 200 meters away and they're gone.
Wow.
But then when you do shoot them, if you can hit them. If you don't, I've seen guys not with like 30-06 or 308, like they'll have a smaller caliber rifle, and they just turn and look at you and then run.
At you.
Yes, the first time I hunted wild boar in California, I was with a bunch of much more experienced hunters, and they all had sidearms. One guy even had a shotgun, and I'm like, what? And they're like, oh no, because if I miss with my rifle,
you need the shotgun.
Yeah, we got to take it down.
Wow,
so there's a kind of like I feel like we're kind of on level playing fields. I mean, I understand I have a gun, but
sure,
there's a hunt there, and then I don't know. I feel like there's a connection. There's a need. There's a need being met for me taking this animal off the planet. Whereas, being in a helicopter, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I understand it's needed, and bravo if you want to go do it, sign up. It sounds kind of fun. But they strap you into the helicopter, and then you strafe, and you just go and take them out.
A pig is not standing a chance.
I also don't like the idea of wasting meat. Like if they
apparently
use it,
those pigs taste like shit though.
Yeah,
why really?
I don't know.
It's gamey, tougher.
That's what I said to. That's what I said to one of my
pigs
friends.
Taste like shit. You're saying, or
apparently these in Texas, these feral pigs, they're not. It's
not
a kind of
good.
like a shitty meat.
In-
Because that's the first thing I said. I was like, well, don't you go down and just collect them at least and feed the homeless? And they're like, no, it's pretty rancid.
Wow.
In Australia, they'll shoot brumbies, which are majestic wild horses.
Oh,
and they'll shoot them because there's just too many of them.
Oh wow!
And they look like beautiful wild horses, and they'll just gun them down.
People hunt kangaroo.
People do hunt kangaroo, yeah.
You eat them?
I would eat them.
I've had it here and there. It's not like a staple part of my diet, no.
Well, meat. You like your sugar more.
For sure.
There's
Big sugar.
kangaroos in Texas.
Is there really?
The farm I went and got my last donkey at.
Small ones, big ones.
There was an adult, but clearly there were baby. And I walked by the pen, talking to the guy, and I look at him like, "That's fucking kangaroo." And he's like, "Oh yeah, no." And he said, "They're all over. You can buy kangaroos."
So you have several animals. I've heard you over.
I do.
A big farm.
I have about 20 chickens. I have about 25 guinea fowl.
How far is
What's
this
a guinea
farm?
fowl?
Guinea fowl are like yolked out turkey. They look like little turkeys. They're really loud and they're really annoying, but they eat bugs. And
so that's helpful.
Wow.
and they're wild too. I don't really have to put much effort in taking care of them. But I have those. I have a bunch of chickens. I have 2 donkeys, 6 sheep.
Wow.
6 goats.
Wow.
5 dogs.
Dude, you're set for the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Here. You don't need to call up Tim. You're good.
I started milking the sheep, and I like sheep.
Milking the
cheese.
sheep.
Wow.
Yeah.
You make cheese out of that?
I've tried. Yeah, the first
Where-
guy, it was
where
really
is your
runny. It
farm?
tasted good, but it was really runny.
Where is it?
Right
How-
off Lake Travis, like just north of
Do
Center
you
City.
do
Austin.
you like make products and sell it like as a farm thing?
We
or-
don't sell anything, but we are going to. My wife is she's like blue belt in beekeeping, and she'll be brown belt soon. A couple more, and we're gonna make honey and sell it because even apparently if you don't even sell the honey, just by virtue of keeping bees in Texas, it's a huge tax break.
Oh, really? I'm sure it's great for like farming.
It's fun too. Yeah,
They pollinate other.
you just got to keep them away from eating stinging the like the donkeys and stuff because
Really?
not only will they like hang out near them, but donkeys, any equine based like a donkey, horse, mule, you'll see there'll be flies on and they'll just shake their skin. They're not like fit the fuck.
Yeah.
So and they'll just be next thing you know they're getting stung and they'll be, that's kind of sucks. Won't harm
Of
them.
all of those animals you have, what's the least amount of maintenance?
Probably donkey.
Really?
Probably
Less than the
donkey.
guinea fowl.
Yeah, because the guinea fowl are their prey.
They are prey. Oh,
Yeah,
right. So you still have
they-
to protect them. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to
Yeah.
keep them like somewhat corralled, even though they're wild.
Yeah.
And they can fly, but they don't like to. So I got to kind of keep an eye on them because coyotes will get them. But donkeys, I mean, unless like a bear comes, which is not really going to happen.
Yeah.
Donkeys, coyotes are not going after donkey, and
They're pretty.
and they just hang out, and you put out water for them, you put out hay and shit.
they're
and
chill, yeah.
Yeah, and they're fun.
What
They're
a great
nice.
animal.
And they fuck they a lot of the problem I've had with the sheep and goat is that
They'll
even
fuck.
even when they there's
Serious,
that.
this is a legitimate question.
Oh, and they'll fuck the children, which is so that's why
They'll what?
They'll Dalai Lama the kids.
Yeah. You have to
Edit that out. It's not in keeping with my stance.
Kids, like, 'cause we already have given birth to sheep and goat, and then we have to take care of the spay or neuter before it gets to certain, because then the man adult, he doesn't give a fuck. They don't understand. Like, there's not that same. And then of course subsequently you end up with like lame, or unhealthy animals.
In
after.
the
They can't. They'll grow. They'll reproduce, but they can't produce more. So they're infertile or something.
No,
How does that
they'll
work? Like,
they'll mate with their friend, and they'll have those babies, but oftentimes they'll be like
fucked up.
really unhealthy kids.
Oh, wow,
And the
okay.
more generations you do it, same with humans. The more generations
Yeah.
you do it, it'll.
in Indian culture, one of the worst ways to shame somebody is you put a garland of shoes around their neck, and then you make him ride a donkey, and you take the like the blackness from like a
charcoal or something.
yeah like a
black
pot
person?
or
Scrape it
like
off.
a pot or pan or some shit. You take
Yeah,
the
the
black
soot.
and you rub it on their face.
Okay.
And if
Why?
that's like
What's
the
the-
ultimate
real
insult.
blackface.
That's OG blackface.
Yeah,
That's the
you make him go
ultimate shame.
blackface and the shoes, and
Shoes
then
on
you
the
beat him
donkey.
and make him ride around on a donkey.
We should have that at B Team if you I don't know, miss a
Pull up on a
payment or
donkey.
something. Yeah, pulled on a donkey, necklace, shoes.
There was an Australian guy at Gallipoli, who's one of the World War One. They couldn't. I think it was the Western Front. They couldn't break through. Like, it was just like a standstill. So Churchill was like, "We're gonna get all the Australians to attack Turkey and come in from the other side to try and get the advantage." And they just did a terrible job. They dropped off the Australian. Like, they were supposed to drop them off here where it was like nice easy road. They dropped them off where there were like sheer cliffs and machine gun fire, and a bunch of people just got like murked
mowed
straight
down.
away. It was just awful.
Wow.
Like, for each meter of fighting, it was like so many
Well,
deaths. And
It was like thousands of years of the Turks being able to completely
know
defend
the
that
area.
area, and like that Constantinople was the second Roman Empire for a reason. And then like think of the Ottoman Turks. And it's such a weird place because like it's kind of Asian, but it's also kind of Europe, like
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
and like
That's
and it's-
Istanbul now, right?
It's
The reason
Constantinople.
why I brought it up is there was a guy, Samson, and he was famous for bringing people out on his donkey. And then eventually he got shot too, and he was like an Aussie hero.
because you would save them from that.
There were Indians there too, a bunch
Certain
of Indians
death.
with turbans fighting in Gallipoli. What a insane thing. That's your generational thing. Like,
Yeah.
instead of COVID, all right, we're going to be in a war where 60,000 people die like that. Just
the
waves.
I
world
would-
goes to
Dude.
war, and you don't watch
Take
it in the
your
news.
family and
you
run,
go
man.
like
Yeah.
all hands
Bro.
on deck. If you have a healthy boy at house, guess what,
Dude,
Because
run.
of
Go into
Austrian
fucking
Take
Normandy.
your fucking
Yeah.
family
You're
and
going- you know what?
disappear,
But
bro.
because
Oh
an
my
Austrian
God.
Duke got shot, like, how do you make sense
Well,
of that?
apparently that was just an insanely small camel straw that broke that camel's back.
Right.
There was a bunch of political
Right,
tensions
right.
but that's a crazy story. They fucked up. They were gonna they were supposed to blow him up.
Yeah, yeah.
And this dude is like, I guess we failed killing the Archbishop of Franz Ferdinand. What a terrible letdown. And he's drinking coffee in an alley, and the
sees
guy
him.
comes by and he's
Yeah.
like, "Fuck!" And just shoots him in the face.
I'm so
Some nobody.
unfamiliar with it. I know you're as lost as I
Hardcore.
am.
Dan
I know-
Carlin. You should listen to Dan Carlin.
It's crazy. That started.
It's
that
how
started
World War
World War One. Like
That's
like
what
a-
started
a
World War
full-on
One?
nobody was
Austrian Archduke.
Okay.
assassinated the Archduke of Austria. Franz Ferdinand.
Franz Ferdinand, yeah. The Black
Named
Hand of
they
Serbia.
named the band after.
So this is exactly what started.
This was literally the moment, the breaking point. Obviously,
the spark
there was
that sparked the gasoline.
tremendous
Like,
tension in all areas of which led to World War One. This wasn't, but it was over. It was like
Wow.
like Rodney King started the L.A. riots. It wasn't just Rodney King, but that was it.
Yeah.
That
that was
the
what
thing.
set it
Yeah.
off. Okay, yeah.
Incendiary. Yeah.
And they fucked up. They were supposed to assassinate him in like this parade. He was coming, and they were going to blow him up.
Ferdinand.
And they fucked
Yeah.
up. It didn't detonate or something.
Archduke.
And so they were all like, "Oh, darn it, we messed up." And one of them, like apparently like one of the biggest losers in the crew, was drinking coffee in an alleyway coffee house. And the
Sees the
guy,
guy and
After
just
they
walks
fail.
by and he goes, fuck, and he just shoots him in the head.
Started a
And
world war.
War I starts.
Wow, that's crazy.
Because they
I didn't
blame
know
the
that.
Serbs,
I did
right?
not
And then
either.
all the
we got some
alliances.
homework to do. We got to study up on this, I think.
Dan Carlin is. I love that guy. His podcast.
World War I is World War I and the Civil War are so crazy brutal that it's almost beyond belief. Like, I don't think we can even understand unless someone was there, which no one has been, no one living. But they're so crazy brutal that it almost does. You're like, well, it's like when you hear about someone having $200 billion. Like, it's so much.
Yeah.
Like, your brain does. Well,
Yeah,
that doesn't
you
make
can't
any. That's
understand
science
that
fiction.
number,
That's not
yeah.
real.
If you're facing like that's why a lot of the soldiers, even the Australian Special Forces, is always Royal Commission investigation into alleged war crimes and whatnot. And you're like, when you're facing such, and obviously you don't want a bad reputation, and there's reasons they army does those things. But when you're facing such high levels of brutality, and those people, there's no like grounds and whatnot for you to like. It's tough not to just match their brutality, and because human instinct is like,
Yeah.
if you're punching me, I'm punching you. If you're picking up something to hit me, I want to match your level of aggression.
And here's another thing. I read this book. I really wish I could remember the name or the author, but it was a book about the horrors of war. And one of the stories that came from, and this was about World War II in particular. And there was a story about a school teacher. He was a high school teacher and also like a coach. And apparently, by all accounts, like one of the nicest guys you could meet. You know, just one of these dudes in America in the late 30s, 40s, like living the dream. And he gets shipped off to go fight in this war. And he's in Europe, and that by the end of some point they were coming, you know, some battle, walking through Dresden after a battle, and the man who wrote the book was commenting about that there was someone who got their head blown off while they were sitting. They were like at a turret, and their head from here up had gotten blown off, and the guy picked up pebbles and was just trying to play to get into the open. And he's like, this was the man that we all felt comfortable being around, but that's what war did to him. This was the nice guy.
Yeah.
And that's what war will do to you. Wow. And then you think, well, World War I, World War II, Korea, and even into Vietnam, medical technology was at one level. So most of the people who really got either experienced or saw or dealt with trauma, physical trauma, they died.
Yeah.
You know?
They didn't survive.
And now
that,
we're seeing so many, because medical technology is so crazy and triage ability is
Brings
so
them
through the
back
roof.
to life.
These guys are coming back. Damn. And like, there's no recognition of the level of PTSD, because you can all say, well, war isn't as brutal as it once was. Probably true. You're right. It's not as
You're not like
intimate.
fighting with swords.
Same level
But
Yeah.
it's still fucking war.
Yeah.
And it's still gunfire, and it's still firefights, and it's still mortars, and
Explosives,
it's crazy.
yeah.
And even if you get blown up in a fucking Humvee by a roadside bomb, but you see these guys are coming back with literally no legs. There's just such a different level of kind of the return. The return is so high, you know, and there's no recognition of that. Like, well, yes, World War I was probably a lot worse than anything guys in Afghanistan saw, but so many more dudes who saw crazy shit in Afghanistan are coming back, and then we're just like, go live normal life now, please. Go
back into society.
Please just go ahead and press pause again on that CD.
You ever see The Hurt Locker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
Yeah.
one. Yeah. So it's like that.
It kind of goes back to, again, another point in my favor, Nicky Rod, with the argument we had last podcast. Some people go through those awful experiences, seem to come out on the other end pretty well, and other people, their minds can just no longer function.
Yeah.
And you can't say, oh, you're weak, It's just like, man, my mental hardware could not keep up with this immense stresses that I was dealt. Whereas other people, like Jocko seems to be, he talks about it, he's like, yeah, look, I had a task, I executed. Maybe there's a more simplistic kind of thinking of, you know, these guys were doing terrible things, so we did terrible things to them. And obviously people have been able to justify throughout history, like, terrible atrocities. Somehow we have a way of, like,
In
there's
the moment,
countless,
if it's like
many
you just do
genocides
what
and
needs to
whatnot.
be done, and if you feel that's what needs to be
Or
done.
you're like a smaller cog in a larger mechanism, and you're like, am I going to be the guy who stands up? And then I get, you know.
There's an acknowledgement too that probably goes in. I mean, obviously, we should talk to someone who's actually been there, but
Yeah.
I think there's an acknowledgement of some people who can come back and have long-term health, in that they know they saw some shit. And a lot of times the guys who push themselves to going off the rails is that there's a denial that they've been affected. you know,
Yeah.
and then you try to just reintroduce. It's like, I'm not talking to some therapist about it. They don't know. And I get that. If they didn't experience that, what do they know? But I think if you acknowledge coming in, meaning coming back to the real world, to the normal boring world, you're like, yeah, that was really not healthy, and I had a job to do, and I did it, and I'm brave, and everyone should commend me for that. But that a human brain is not probably supposed to see that.
Yeah.
I need to tend to that,
Yeah.
just like you would a physical wound.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you don't see it; it's in your head, so you're like, oh, maybe I don't need to fix this. But
That's my biggest problem with dudes in recovery, like people that I care for that reach out to me and they're like, they want some. The people who I've seen have the least success, oftentimes the manliest dudes, because they look at it as something. I have a friend of mine who's
you don't
a
wanna
Marine.
be a pussy.
He was a Marine, battle-tested Marine. And the guy was fucking tough. And he literally said, open to me, he's like, I just feel like, yeah, I'm drinking every day and I don't want to drink it. He's like, but I'm a fucking Marine. I should be able to chew this up and spit it out. And I was like, it's not, there's no battle here. Okay? This is a battle if I were to give you no firearms and walk you onto a battlefield with your hands tied behind you. Right? You must surrender to win.
Wow.
Like you're not gonna.
Wow.
And he couldn't come. He's like, but I can will my way through this. And I was like, no, it's not about that, man. It's not. You're not weak for taking this route. And he never really picked up on it. And it makes a lot of sense to me that he just thought he could be stronger. And I was like, but that's not how. That doesn't apply here. You know, but MMA fighters, truck driving, cops, a lot of like the tropes of like masculinity. Oftentimes are the ones I see having a lot of trouble.
If you have like this standard of, I don't know, I should be strong, I should be whatever, and then you fail to meet that, and then you feel, okay, maybe disappointment or frustration, and then that plays into like this kind of self-hatred, maybe a secret self-hatred people have, and because their relationship with themselves is, they're just always talking shit to themselves, you could see how that's a good recipe for an unhappy kind of life.
Yeah. All right, that was good. This is
yeah.
2 hours.
Wrap
Killed
it
it.
up. My man,
Mike,
thank you.
Rogan level,
Yeah.
marathon.
Dude, I appreciate you, investing some time in us.
Yeah, very cool.
thank
to
you.
meet
It was
you.
my.
It was
I
a
thank.
great
I
conversation.
genuinely appreciate you reaching out. I had a great time. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anything
Yeah.
you want to plug? I know you got your podcast. You got anything else? Yeah.
Mikey Likes You, the greatest health and fitness podcast on the earth, according to me.
We
But
agree.
Howard Stern just decided he was the king of all media, right? And then after a
Right.
while, people were like, okay,
He is. Yeah. yeah.
Michael Jackson's
The king of
I'm
pop.
the king of pop. No one
Yeah.
gave him. Like he decided.
You declare it.
So I'm declaring.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, we declare that we're the number one jiu-jitsu podcast in the world. So
Yes.
that's we'll
us.
call it that. Yep.
So yeah,
Yeah. Thanks for listening. We out.
thanks for coming
Cool.
on. And yeah, all right.